If you're a fifth grader in the audience, will you please raise your hand? All right. And your school is Franklin. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Great. We're just going to get started. We will call to order this June 15th, 2026 meeting of the Newton School Committee. I apologize that we are running late. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Cadence Thorne from Franklin. And let's see, Cadence, your principal says about you, she is a great friend and a hard worker. She loves cats, and she is an avid soccer player. Her teachers and friends describe her as thoughtful, supportive, dedicated, and positive. We are very proud of her and thrilled that she's representing Franklin School. So you can begin whenever you're ready, and there's no obligation, but for those who would like to stand.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to share anything about your school or yourself?
Yeah, school is just good.
What do you love about it?
I like just learning.
Good answer.
We're really proud of you. You did a great job. Nice job.
Thank you. So we'll start, or we'll move on to public comment. I think you know by now that this is time reserved for members of the public to address the committee and for the committee members to directly hear your concerns and perspective. We will not respond during the meeting, but we will listen and consider feedback. You may also reach out to us directly. Our emails are on the website, phone numbers too, to discuss feedback. And remote speakers, I will find out if we have many of those in a second. Please make sure if you are on Zoom to make your name match the name that you signed up with. And you will all have 3 minutes. Good. We could not do 30 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes at a 2.5 minute mark. Jason will give you a gentle reminder. And we will begin in the room with Enrique Rosero, followed by Angela Brooks.
Enrique Rosero, 19 Garland. I'm here tonight to address a performative culture that I believe is currently harming our district, and I'll illustrate it with 3 points. First, in the superintendent's evaluation, a member suggested that Dr. Nolin's tone should be more positive and focus less on budget challenges. Ironic, given that several members of this board campaigned by stoking the fear of anti-Semitism and decrying the impending academic demise of our schools. I agree, though, we must celebrate the remarkable accomplishment of our students, which are enabled by our excellent teachers. But we cannot gaslight this community by demanding we ignore the real need to address MPS's funding. Second, we should end the double standard we apply to our educators. Whenever budget cuts are discussed, the theme is to do more with less. When the police department has insufficient staff, the mayor doesn't say they'll rise to meet the challenge. When the fire department responds to emergencies, we don't expect them to use their secret sauce to make up for the lack of equipment. We provide them both with tools, training, generous contracts, support, and respect. Yet, when it comes to MPS, we treat our teachers' dedication as an infinite resource to be exploited. You've also repeated the dangerous fallacy that only 20% of Newton residents have kids in the schools, as if that were an excuse from supporting them properly. Most residents, thankfully, never have to call the police or report a fire. Yet we all agree that services are essential for pillars of our community. Education is no different. It's a shared civic responsibility, not a niche service for a minority of households. Finally, I would much rather hear the superintendent state that if a position is cut, the job will simply not be done, rather than pretending that adequate coverage will occur through staff who are already working at full capacity. The plan to absorb responsibilities into existing roles is disingenuous. Look, for example, at the delegation of facilities planning to Mr. Hurley. He's a finance expert, not a mechanical or a civil engineer able to evaluate and rank the condition and probability of failure for assets in the capital improvement plan. Just last week, this committee accepted a major recommendation regarding school consolidation from someone who lacks the technical qualification of a city planner, transportation engineer, or economist. Even joked that he needed another hobby. It is the height of irony to preach excellence and best practices while explicitly avoiding expert-led recommendations. If you want excellence, you must respect professionals. Please stop expecting our staff to do the impossible with insufficient budgets and start prioritizing honesty over political optics. Our students deserve a committee that plans for the future with as much rigor as they demand from our classrooms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wait. Angela Brooks, followed by Sarah Caravanova. I said that right.
Angela Brooks, 5 Marshall Street. I am one of 85 people who signed a recent letter to you all. I want to start by saying I truly appreciate the long hours you've put into the FY27 budget. I understand that no one is happy about the cuts, and I appreciate you listening to community members' concerns and trying to do right by NPS students given the fiscal realities. But when I read the DEI section of the transition plan, I felt so upset that I was moved to testify. I understand that there is no one right way to do DEI and that different leaders bring different visions. But basic organizational research is clear that it's crucial to have a point of accountability with expertise in the subject matter. Under a dedicated office, the organization can set measurable goals and be focused on working toward them, and it can put forth consistent messaging and policy. Someone with experience and training brings the why and the how of doing those things. While this transition plan may do a good job at demonstrating how each and every task of the DEI office will be distributed, it fails to account for how NPS will continue to give real meaning to DEI work, to ensure that it gets done and gets done well. Checking every box does not equate with success. It is telling that the words strategy or strategic do not appear in this section of the plan. The plan also does not provide you, the school committee, or the public with enough information to know that people absorbing the tasks have the required time and expertise. I'd also want to know exactly how the district has embedded equity-centered practices, decision-making, and accountability across all departments and leadership roles, to quote the plan. I truly appreciate that as the plan states, DEI is expected to be a core competency of every department. This expectation is part of a meaningful vision for DEI work, but it is not mutually exclusive of the need for a central office grounded in expertise and accountability. The emerging consensus is toward a hybrid model for DEI work, a central function that sets strategy and measures outcomes with distributed departments owning execution and holding their individual leaders accountable. NPS is moving away from the emerging consensus. One last point. To say that the current position is a 0.5 role says more about what has already been moved away from the DEI office than how much work an empowered DEI office could and should be doing. I hope you will continue to weigh the impact of this transition on meaningful DEI work in NPS and reconsider this approach. I also have concerns about the potential rollout of accelerated math at Bigelow, but given the time, I will submit that testimony in writing.
Thank you. Sarah Karakanova, I'm saying that wrong, followed by, I will ask that we do not clap in between. We just don't have time. I want to make sure everyone gets their time to speak and I don't want to cut it off. Sarah and then Joanne Griffiths.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Karivanova and I live at 39 West Street. I'm here again with my husband and other Bigelow parents because we love our children and our community. Dr. Nolan and school committee members, thank you so much for bringing Math Pathways to Newton. We appreciate the transformative work that you're doing on the math curriculum to bring more intervention and enrichment opportunities to our students. We're asking to be your partners on the first year implementation because we think Math Pathways success includes an accelerated high school class taught at all 4 middle schools starting at year 1. Bigelow parents are asking to be in dialogue with you, Dr. Nolan, as well as Dr. Green and the math department about the planned implementation at Bigelow. The distribution of students across schools who placed into the accelerated class wasn't predictable, but now we have some data, so we have some additional questions. We understand the spring assessment was designed to identify students who mastered grade 8 content. To make it clear, we continue to ask about how a high school math class at Bigelow, because of what was communicated at the March 10th 8th grade math placement meeting. At that meeting, Director Shore specifically acknowledged that there may be outlier cases after students begin 8th grade. She stated that if teachers notice in September that a student deeply understands the content and the teacher looks back at the spring score and says the score does not match what the student is demonstrating, that's a conversation. And that may be a conversation where the student is moved, which she described as where the idea of a pathway or a flexible pathway comes in. Our concern is that the flexible pathway described to families does not appear to function at Bigelow if there is no in-building accelerated class. We ask you to clarify how the flexible pathway works in practice at our school. Is the position of NPS that the enhanced grade 8 math course plus MTSS enrichment is the accelerated pathway at Bigelow, which would be different from the other schools? We're with you on the long-term vision. We're just seeking more dialogue on the first year implementation. Second, we want to clarify the Title I concern. We're not saying that the Title I status requires NPS to ensure students skip a grade of math. We're asking to clarify what review was done of the test results after it was learned that only one student qualified for the high school math class at Bigelow, the district's only Title I middle school. A proportional distribution would have produced 7 qualifying students. If NPS believes Bigelow's outcome is explained by the student mix, prior exposure, opt-out rate, enrichment,
You got 30
and other
seconds.
school level factors, then please share the school level data and analysis supporting that conclusion. We request that you engage and partner with us to make a full equivalent high school math class happen in the fall at Bigelow. We can make this happen together. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne Griffiths, followed by Khalil Dagher.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Griffiths. I live at 139 Pearl Street in Newton, and I'm following on from Sarah's presentation. So Sarah already asked for clarification on the Year 1 Bigelow implementation plan relative to the March 10th meeting and the school level review of Bigelow test results. I would like to ask how Bigelow teachers get practice teaching the high school math curriculum. We agree that Bigelow teachers are capable, licensed, and able to teach advanced math. Our question is, if Bigelow does not run the high school Math 1 accelerated class next year, how will Bigelow teachers gain the same practical implementation experience with that course that teachers at the other middle schools will gain by actually teaching it? Content knowledge and access to materials are not implementation experience. Teachers who teach the course next year will learn pacing, sequencing, assessment calibration, student misconceptions, and instructional adjustments in real time. If Bigelow does not run the course, what is the plan to ensure Bigelow is not a year behind in that practical experience? With that said, our remaining questions are, number 1, will Bigelow have an in-building high school Math 1 accelerated class in 2026-27? 2, if not, what is the specific on-ramp for a Bigelow student who demonstrates readiness at the end of the summer or early in the school year? 3, what happens if a student transfers into Bigelow and qualifies for accelerated math? 4, will MPS please release school-level data, including test takers, opt-outs, score bands, and placements by school? 5, What review did NPS do after Bigelow produced only one qualifying student? And 6, how will Bigelow teachers gain comparable implementation experience with the accelerated curriculum if the course is not offered at Bigelow? These are implementation questions we are eager to engage with you about. Bigelow families support math pathways. We want it to succeed. But for it to exceed across all 4 middle schools, Bigelow needs a clear, school-specific implementation plan, not just reassurance about the long-term vision.
You have
Thank you.
30 seconds. Thanks.
Thank you. Khalil Dagher, followed by Bob Rougeau.
Good evening. My name is Khalil Dagher. I live on 102 Cabot Street. Dear members of Newton School Committee, Superintendent, and Mr. Mayor, I am here to follow up on the ongoing issue of Bigelow School not offering an advanced math class comparable to those available to the other 3 middle schools. As a community of concerned parents, we have requested a meeting with Bigelow leadership to better understand the situation and discuss how we can make things better. We have yet to receive a response. We respectfully reiterate our request to ensure that Bigelow is brought in line with the other middle schools. It is important that taxpayer-funded resources are distributed equitably and that all students have access to the same academic opportunities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Bob Rougeau, followed by Sana Fidel.
Hello, I'm Bob Rougeau. I live at 827 Boylston Street in Newton Highlands, and I am here to talk about field trips. More specifically, the enrichment type of trips that kids in Newton's elementary schools have been enjoying for decades. Our 3rd grade daughter at Zervis is my 4th child to go through the Newton public school system. Despite this being my 14th consecutive year with a child in the Newton schools, I've only recently felt the urge to speak up, which brings me here tonight. My 3rd grader started at NPS post-COVID in September of 2022, and her field trip experiences have been very different from those of her half siblings. By this time, my son, who attended Burr Elementary and recently graduated from Newton North, had been to the local post office in Auburndale, the Arnold Arboretum, the planetarium at the MOS, the Franklin Park Zoo, the Chinese Cultural Center, and Plymouth Plantation. My daughter, on the other hand, has only been to the Waterworks Museum, Drumlin Farm, and Natick Community Farm. This year, she went nowhere. And it is my understanding that we can expect the same in her 4th and 5th grade years as well. Furthermore, it is my understanding that field trips in Newton are at the whim of the individual teacher, and I believe this is very inequitable and not even close to being acceptable. However, the most bothersome thing that my wife and I experienced recently were the circular and ambiguous answers we received from multiple school staff and an equally untransparent answer from the superintendent. Again, unacceptable. Dr. Nolan, I was present for your speech at Newton North's commencement where you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going off of memory here, a sense of community amongst the students in the graduating class. So my question is, how do you reconcile this with not promoting the enrichment-focused field trips in our schools? Please keep in mind that the kids you were addressing all had similar experiences as my son if they attended Newton Elementary schools. And
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. The way this whole topic has been addressed throughout the school system is rather shady in my viewpoint. No one is going to tell you that your teacher said no, and that's why your kids aren't going to the Plymouth Patuxent this year. And some third grade classes in Newton, I believe off of hearsay, did go. So it's not even equitable. For our daughter, third grade is virtually done and over, and her Plymouth Patuxent.
I'm afraid your time is up.
It's up?
I'm sorry. Yes.
It's okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sana Fidel, followed by Mike. And I'm going to let him say his last name so that I don't ruin it.
Good afternoon, Dr. Nolan, members of the school committee. My name is Sana Fadel, resident of 69 Fair Oaks Avenue. I'm here to talk about the budget cuts. Some of what I have to say you probably already know, but I just want to talk about the impact on our schools. So I'm a mother of 3 kids, 2 graduated Newton North, current Newton North, and a 7th grader in Day Middle School. I testified earlier about the cuts based on the mayor's budget. On the mayor's budget. And the promise was there would be no student-facing cuts. Testified about how that there were issues with that, especially around the DEI. I actually want to talk about some of the other cuts that came in. I know you wanted to get the math put in this year. It was pushed. I can talk about the implementation around how the testing was happening and the impact on our kids, but there was a financial cost to it. My kids, so I'm going to start with like where my kids are. My older kids who went to North, multiple AP, I know they're probably cringing now, multiple AP classes, math classes, history classes, a whole bunch across the board. Never once have I taken them out to a tutoring class, an outside class, anything. Everything that they did happened because of NPS. And I'm very proud of what they did. And what the school offers is amazing. I am worried now that with what's happening, with the math budget, there was a trade-off. We bring in eight math interventionists. It means we're going to have to do additional cuts, and those came out of Newton North. So the concept, I think the concept is fine. I really appreciate when the math team and Dr. Nolan presented to the 7th grade parents that there are kids who are behind in math. We need to give them interventionists, just like we do reading interventionists. I want all these kids to love math and not feel intimidated that by middle school, I feel stupid. And this is what kids are telling me when I talk to them in high school because they got a B. But this is not for me. I got a 20%. I got a 40% of the test. I'm feeling stupid, right? That's not how we want them to start to say, I'm there. I'd love to see them being lifted up. And if that's what happens, great. However, it was rushed. And now we're seeing, so in the past 10 years, I've been in Newton North since whenever COVID was. We've had, I think between 10 to 12 full-time staff equivalent have been reduced. Our class sizes, more than half of our social studies classes are over capacity, like 25 students or more. We are losing,
30 seconds.
30 or 10?
30.
Okay. We're losing social studies staff, ELL staff, ELA staff, professional development, curricular materials, IT support. It's a lot. Our kids don't need one class. They need all of that. And also behavioral therapists. There's a whole bunch that support our kids beyond just one classroom. And I am worried now about what's happening to my 7th grader now and if this is the trajectory we're going, I'm worried about FY28 and so forth. So I hope you guys look at the full picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike? I can't quite make it out. Starts with an SCH. You'll say it for me, won't you? Followed by John Fitzgerald.
Good evening. My name is Mike Schlegelmilch, and I'm an English teacher at Newton North and also a member of the NTA Executive Committee. I'm reading this statement on behalf of 43 undersigned NTA educators from North in response to Dr. Nolan's recent comments regarding AI in the Newtonite. In the excellently reported article by NNHS student journalists Naya Lubars and Shanali Sen, Dr. Nolan makes several statements that we find troubling as colleagues. She states that the issues surrounding AI are, quote, not as cut and dry as the teachers think it is, implying that we hold a simplistic view of the technology. She goes on to say that educators' position on AI stems from us having, quote, done things in a certain way for a long time, that we find the rise of AI, quote, scary, and that she's, quote, shocked to see how little our teachers have done with AI. As the article makes clear, however, Newton educators and students have thoughtful and nuanced ideas about the role of AI in schools. While Dr. Nolan pushes educators to use this technology in our classrooms, she ignores the evidence of AI's harmful effects on critical thinking, creativity, the environment, mental health, and social justice. Issues that the teachers and students interviewed in the Newtonite piece raises concerns. As educators, we are not scared of AI. We know that human relationships are at the heart of learning and that no large language model can ever do what we do. We're not stuck in our ways either. In fact, we consistently but thoughtfully innovate in terms of equitable practices, in our use of technology, in project-based learning, and much more. It is because of our skill and expertise in our profession that we're sensitive to the situations in which using AI is antithetical to student learning. Dr. Nolan's comments undermine our efforts to support students' mental health and provide them with an excellent education, including how to think critically about the place of AI in our schools and society. As educators on the front line navigating this issue, we would have appreciated if Dr. Nolan had engaged with us to learn about our perspectives and concerns before speaking about us in a public forum. We call on Dr. Nolan and the school committee to seek out and include our voices and expertise in district discussions and policymaking around AI and academic honesty in our schools. Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
copy of the comments for each member.
Thank you. John Fitzgerald, followed by Rob O'Brien.
Hello, my name is John Fitzgerald, and I'm a history teacher at North. While I signed on to the statement that my colleague just read, I also want to take this opportunity to share some concerns that many educators have about AI in schools. In 2008, the first iPhone came out, and we started a massive experiment that no one would have ever allowed their children to participate in were it an actual scientific study. We put incredibly powerful computers with access to social media into our children's hands. There is now a consensus that the results of that experiment have been devastating. Despite this consensus, we're now doing the same thing with AI. And once again, it's frontline educators who are having to deal with the consequences of this technology. While it's still too early to say anything definitive, the emerging research is very concerning. Recent studies have found the following. ChatGPT likely reduces critical thinking skills. AI technology such as ChatGPT may promote learners' dependence on technology and potentially trigger metacognitive laziness. Sycophancy in AI can undermine users' capacity for self-correction and responsible decision-making. AI systems might trigger, amplify, or reshape psychotic experiences in vulnerable individuals, leading to what's been called AI psychosis. Even short exposure to AI can have measurable negative effects. After brief AI-assisted sessions of about 10 minutes, participants were significantly more likely to give up on problems and perform significantly worse once the AI was removed. And of course, we've all read with horror the new phenomenon of AI being used to generate pornographic images of young girls by their classmates. Even if the worst predictions about AI don't turn out to be true, the technology is unlikely to have a positive impact on teaching and learning. Again, we don't have to look too far back to find evidence for this claim. According to an OECD meta-analysis of educational technology, quote, students who use computers very frequently at school do a lot worse in most learning outcomes. And perhaps the most disappointing finding is that the report is of little help in bridging the skills divide between advantaged and disadvantaged students. In fact, the introduction of computers into the classroom coincides with the dramatic decline in reading and math scores globally. It's often said by advocates of AI in the classroom that students need to be taught how to use this technology because they'll have to use it in their jobs. This misunderstands both the technology and education. When we're teaching children concepts like addition and subtraction, we don't let them use calculators until they've demonstrated that they've internalized these concepts. We require that students go to school so they learn how to think. Once they've developed the capacity to think for themselves, if their job requires it, they can quickly and easily figure out how to use AI because they'll know how to figure things out.
You have 30 seconds.
My great fear is that 10 years from now, after having seen all the damage done, we're going to look back and ask, How could we have done that again? How could we have allowed another massive experiment on another generation of young people? My concern about AI in schools is not based on fear of change or fear of technology. It's based upon concern for my students and for our society. It's not too late to take a different approach.
Thank you. Rob O'Brien, followed by Scott McKenzie.
Good evening, all. Rob O'Brien, 32 Fairfax Street. I'm here to speak about, to advocate for a comprehensive and rigorous homework policy. I am an NPS grad and I have kids in NPS. I've always been a nerd, so one of my very first memories of engaging with NPS was going to day, because I got here in 8th grade, and receiving a day planner where we wrote down our homework assignments. And looking back on that, I really appreciate that that had me engage in what do I have to do? How am I going to do it? It's on me to execute on that. That's a valuable lesson. My kids are younger, so it's not an apples to apples comparison, but my children have had 0 minutes of homework, unless they're doing it in secret, which I have reason to doubt. So I am here to advocate for a comprehensive NPS homework policy. I think this is important on the level with curriculum, which we do not leave up to, the whims. We say this is what we want as a district. We want to implement best practices and not have to worry about which school my children are in, or do they have a teacher that doesn't give homework. Second, I'd like to err on the side of rigor. I don't want to have to worry about doing something like Russian School of Math or pulling my kids out to put them in private school to feel like I'm doing right by them. I am, as a product of Newton Public Schools, want to keep my kids in Newton Public Schools and feel like they're getting the best possible education. I think that homework is part of that. I think especially in middle school and high school, we know that, research shows that, and I want to have a plan to get them there. So I'll leave it to the experts on how many minutes they get in 3rd grade, but I'm asking for a comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott McKenzie, followed by SD Kajust, maybe?
Hi, I'm Scott McKenzie, and I'm also here to talk about homework. Want to thank you all for starting the meeting 15 minutes late, because if you had not, I would have been late for this meeting. It's not because I didn't know when we were supposed to be here or that I knew when I had to leave to get here on time. I just didn't get here early enough. And that is a lesson that I learn on a daily basis, where I set expectations and try to practice achieving my own personal goals, and I fail. And that's because I need help. And ultimately, kids need help too. Newton is unbelievable at providing help. I have benefited from that. I have a dyslexic daughter going to 4th grade, and I have a special needs son who needs help with some behavioral issues. And I could not be more thankful for what you guys have done over the course of the last several years in helping them be successful. Life is all about practice, setting expectations, accountability early and often. I ran across this quote yesterday from Scottie Pippen, of all people. Nobody teaches you that practice feels like punishment until the results start to feel like freedom. I think, you fail, you practice, you fail, you get up and try again. And, asking somebody who's benefited from an incredibly inclusive school district, I think a policy of homework expectations is actually a super inclusive policy, not an exclusive one. Setting expectations for everybody to continue to advance at whatever pace is relevant for them is enhanced by the ability of setting expectations to practice learning outside of school. And, I still need help every day, despite my best efforts, and I'm still trying. But I ask that you do what Newton is already great at doing. That is, give the kids the help they need. Give the kids the help they need by setting clear expectations for practicing habits that people like me, who still fail every day later in life, need. Thanks.
Thank you. SD? After Esty, we'll go to remote speakers, starting with Steve Bagley if he's here, and then Laura Taubin.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. My name is Esty Kajus, and I worked on my action project with Safina Kaserie and Olivia dos Anjos, but she couldn't make it today because she's an athlete. So for our action through literature project, our goal was to see how censorship affected students in our classroom. One reason that we wanted to work on this project was because we all felt that it impacted us personally. For example, when major political events happened like ICE action, we did not talk about it. Throughout our process, we learned that censorship has a lot of impact on our students as they don't know what is happening throughout the whole world. Most students said that they felt like they were not being prepared to participate in our future government because we do not talk enough about current events in our school. We also learned that teachers don't like to bring up current events because they don't feel safe or comfortable. We decided to work on this project as we would like to urge you to make our curriculum more inclusive, even if it means having hard conversations or being controversial, as though it benefits our students in their own lives and making good decisions in the future. Thank you so much. Also, we have resources and we can pass them out.
Please do. Thank you.
Good job.
Nice job.
Wait, sorry, I forgot to mention, we go to Newton North when we're sophomores.
Okay. We expect you back next year. All right, so yeah, we'll start with Laura because we don't have Steve online. If you come on, Steve, we'll try to catch you later, followed by Jane Franz.
Material tonight.
Hi, my name is Laura Tovim. I live at 61 Islington Road. I'm here tonight as one of the 85 community members who signed a recent letter regarding the positions cut in the 27 budget. We are deeply concerned about the loss of several key positions: the SEL mental health coordinator, the planning and sustainability director, and the DEI director. These positions are not extras. They are critical to the well-being and safety of our students, as well as key to equitable access to education. Research is very clear that student well-being and feelings of safety and belonging are critical prerequisites to classroom learning. It is profoundly disappointing that these roles are being cut and redistributed, even as our community's needs for these services continues to rise. I'm going to focus my comments tonight on the DEI director's responsibilities. The plan before us reduces critical systemic work to a checklist of discrete administrative tasks to be parceled out. By splitting this work among at least 15 different administrators and offices, this role loses its core value of providing strategic vision and oversight and ensuring consistent practice across the district. DEI leadership is a highly specialized professional discipline that requires dedicated experts who continually assess gaps and stay current on best practices. Distributing discrete tasks among other staff members who already have full-time jobs and don't have this specific expertise is unlikely to be effective. In addition, vital areas like restorative justice, which rely heavily on trust and continuity, are simply not suited to this kind of fractured model. Finally, I'm deeply concerned about the removal of dedicated time for professional development and attendance at statewide coordination meetings. These cuts will isolate the district from evolving standards, frameworks, and best practices. While this transition plan argues that it is embedding equity into daily practice, in reality, it is sidelining the critical, highly specialized civil rights, educational, and cultural responsibilities onto an already overextended staff. There's a real growing gap between the increasing complexity of our students' needs and the resources available to address them. I hope that an updated transition plan can move past this fragmented approach and provide the type of specialized, dedicated leadership this essential work demands. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane Franz, if you're on, you can unmute. Jane.
Yes, my name is Jane Franz and I live at 12 Glastonbury Oval, and I'd like to speak briefly tonight about two issues. First, the homework policy. Dr. Nolan made a statement at the June 1st meeting about homework that was spot on. I hope you will review her statement and will avoid passing a prescriptive homework policy. A broad-based policy should endure for years to come, and I hope that will be the goal for this one. As a teacher, I assigned homework according to a reasonable policy set out in the Burr School Handbook, yet still heard repeated feedback from parents that the homework was too easy or it was too hard, took too much time, or wasn't enough. With a clear policy, I could refer parents to a respected resource. Secondly, I've spoken during the public comment segment about my concerns related to the student mental health crisis, so I'm so pleased to see that the system has hired an administrator to fill the new position of Director of Mental Health and Well-Being. Including the word well-being in the title is particularly important because it suggests, at least to me, that the goal is to address mental health issues proactively before they become a crisis. I've often referred to teaching in the 21st century as a team sport, with members contributing their particular skill sets, experiences, and perspectives, while keeping their eyes and ears open to the needs of all students. That can't happen equitably in 23 schools without a leader who can provide the necessary resources, professional development, and direction for the teams in each school. I look forward to hearing more about this position that has the potential to focus on the well-being of all students. That's it for me for tonight. Thank you so much for all you're doing for the Newton Public Schools students and staff. Good evening.
Recording
Online.
in progress.
That would be our last speaker. Going once, going twice. Okay. That concludes public comment. Thank you to our commenters. We'll move to the consent agenda. Tonight, it contains quite a few items. The June 1st meeting minutes with some adjustments. Donations, a field trip, the
Recording in progress.
Support organizations, as well as the Lincoln Elliott reestablishment of their PTO's tax exempt status. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda, Tamika?
I'd like to pull the donations memo, the one from Christina, Maryland.
Anything else, Ben?
And I'd like to pull the Ainger donation.
Major donation. All the donations are out. All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of everything but the donations?
So moved.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
That. Let's go with Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8?
Yes.
Mayor Laredo?
Yes.
Right. Consent agenda minus donations passes 9-0. So Tamika, do you want to start with
Yes.
donations?
So I think this is a wonderful effort. I honed in on the donation, $5,000 from Cradles to Crayons for the district community care closet, something I'm not too familiar with. So I would love for us to have a little bit of an explainer about what that is, because it sounds fantastic. And I don't know that many people know about it. And if not, let's take a moment to educate them.
Christina Maryland happens to be in the audience this evening. Christina is our Director of Family and Community Engagement.
Okay, can everyone hear me? So the District Care Closet is actually an initiative that sprung out of our donations that were received for winter coats from Cradles to Crayons. We had an existing partnership with them where they provided winter essentials for students. And through the request form, we found that there's a great need for more than just winter clothes. There are a lot of kids that don't have clothes for seasonal transitions. So that's summer, that's winter actual clothing for the week, not just the coat to cover them up. And Cradles to Crayons is actually right in our backyard near Cabot. And they reached out to us to develop a stronger partnership with us. And one of those things is being a part of their seasonal essentials delivery program. So they send a request form, and based on what we see as need from the foot traffic in the Welcome Center and within the schools, we make a guess at what we think we needed in terms of the donation, and they provided it to us with complete fulfillment. That's hygiene products. It's a week's worth of clothes packaged for kids. We also have siblings, younger siblings that are not in the schools but are going to age into the schools that also have great needs. So if your first grader is getting enrolled, we know that the baby might need some clothes as well. And so we included that in our donation requests, and they also provided clean underwear, fresh, new underwear and socks, so that every kid leaves with a backpack full of supplies as well, and some clothes to get them started. So that's really what that is. And the district care closet is the working name for what we're developing, but essentially, we needed somewhere to house it. So, so we're calling it the district care closet until we can build the initiative out a little bit more and put hands around it. A lot of schools use Katie's Closet as their vendor, but to think about our ability to have a strong partnership with Cradles to Crayons, and also just to be budget conscious, we decided to just kind of do it as a grassroots effort and really figure out how we can work with our city and community partners to get this going, as well as our schools, who many of our social workers have their own closets, and now they have a central system where they can backfill what they need.
So I thank you and I commend you for coming up here and on the spot, kind of rattling that off and being so quick with it. I would love for us to be pushing this out in a way that gets more eyes and attention on this, because it is a remarkable effort on the part of the district. And certainly there is that underlying need from our families and our students. And so, you know, bravo on this. I think it's great that we had this bit of a primer. But yeah, I would love to hear more in a formalized way.
Yes, we're working on that. You'll probably hear a little bit more about why we haven't really been able to build that out more, but we're really excited about it, and we think it's going to be a big service to the community.
Thank you.
With that,
So
I
a
will make
motion
the
to-
motion
okay.
to approve the donations to the Office of Family and Community Partnerships.
Anyone like to second? All right, you look like you're ready to second.
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes, Ward 8.
Yes.
Mayor Laredo.
Yes.
Okay, 9-0. The Ainger donation, Ben.
Thank you. I was under the impression that gifts cannot be made directly to individual schools.
That's correct. They're made to the district, but I'm not you, so I can't reject the donation. Only you can.
Okay, so the memo that we were given says that the donation is going towards supporting Ainger School students and programs, and that it complies with the requirements of the Newton Public Schools gift and donation policy.
So we accept those donations on behalf of any family, and whenever we can, we work with them to find out if that is an appropriate scenario. Amy Mistro has investigated that and found that the intention is appropriate and in line with the spending agreements for Ainger for this year.
Me neither.
Can you say more about that, please?
About that, meaning what is that?
How is it both at odds with and in compliance with the donation policy?
So the donations get made to the school system. This family is asking you, or community member is asking to direct it to Ainger. There's no explicit anything that says that you can't do that. There's caps on the equity policy that indicate certain amounts of money, and you can't like donate directly, like I would like to buy a teacher, please, for $150,000, something like that. So this is very generic. It would typically go into the principal's fund, where she would typically fund when students don't have what they need. Amy Mistro's on camera if you want to hear even more.
Welcome, Amy.
Hi, everybody.
I'm wondering if I'm a parent out there who would like to donate to my school, and I previously understood that that's not possible. It sounds like it could be possible depending on the amount and possibly other stuff.
Well, this committee is taking up the equity policy for this very reason in the future.
We are. Is there a way for a parent out there to understand, like, is there a number? Help, please.
I don't know if I can offer much help because, you know, the questions you're wondering, I also went right to the equity, or not the equity policy, but the gift and donation policy, which is put forward as being in compliance with, and I read it. And it is, but the sticking point is that the district always, the school committee that is, always has the option of either rejecting a donation or redistributing the donation. So that's the way to frame this out to any parent who I say, you know, I want to donate $1 million to Newton North. The district might say, thank you very much. We'll take your donation and redistribute it as we see fit. That's our purview. I think that's what the superintendent is speaking to. However, the donation linear direct to the school, that's what's raising some scrutiny, and correctly so, in my opinion.
It's very helpful. I think it would have been, I think the phrasing of actually the two memos here do not make that discretion entirely or at all clear. It sounds like a check is being written to Ainger School and it's being deposited into the Ainger School bank account. And I want to be clear, grateful, thank you to the family making the donation. This is not a question of whether we want your money in our school system or not. It's just making sure we're not breaking our own policies along the way.
Amy, did you want to add anything?
I don't know that I have anything to add on this. I don't mean to contradict you, but this memo was not submitted by me.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just try to restate what I think I heard and tell me if it's wrong? What I'm hearing is it's a $500 donation to NPS. There's been an expressed preference to have it go to Ainger related things, but ultimately it is at the discretion of superintendent and well, the school committee. I should say school committee.
Just you.
Yeah, I meant school committee. Yeah, that's it. I'm not gonna go further.
I think that's right. And I don't know, I personally would feel better going back to the donor and asking if they're comfortable with that, because when a donor intends something, I wouldn't want to fly in the face of that. So I wonder, I might move that we reject that particular donation today and we follow up with the donor and make sure that they're comfortable with the way it could be redistributed according to our purview.
Well,
No? Or just not take it up today. Okay.
I think what we heard is that the superintendent intends to recommend that we route it to Ainger, and if we therefore intend to accept that recommendation and it's $500, so I can't imagine why we'd fight about it, then maybe we should just say yes and make a request that going forward, that be made clear to the donor that there is some discretion here, and also that this memo say that the donation is to NPS with the intention of being used for a particular school.
I'm just concerned about donor intent, because I think if the person thinks it's going into a certain place and we have a different authority, that's my only hiccup.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, we'll look at it again.
And I don't want to open the floodgates of all these specific things coming in if we want to make sure everybody understands. Okay. Okay, let's table that one.
Don't not give us money because of this. We'll figure it out.
No, you super want all of your money. It is not that, but I want to make sure that the person is comfortable with where it could end up. Okay, we are finished with the consent agenda and we will move to the superintendent's update, which will be discussion of the transition plan.
Yes, and first
No, because we're going to table that item and follow up.
First, I'd just like to introduce some folks who've been sitting here a long time and who are not part of the agenda but are new on our staff. I wanted to introduce our 3 interim principals that will be serving next year. Gabrielle Mulrain from Bowen, formerly Mason Rice. Come on up, Gabby, and just sit here for a second. Formerly of Mason Rice, she is a Peroni Sizer Institute Fellow, which is one of our leadership pipeline internal programs run through our HR department. She's been a part of many staff leadership development activities here in the district. So congratulations and welcome. Second, could certainly stay there. Secondly, we have Lisa Gilbert Smith, interim principal for Newton North High School. She's our former METCO director here, but a 9-year Boston Public School principal and Influence 100 intern for, which is a graduate studies program for superintendents of color, and it's a training program that she's been in for the last 2 years. She has lots of other hats, but we welcome her into her new role. So congratulations. And finally, we have Caitlin Brown, who is the interim principal for Newton South High School, formerly dean at South, and former principal at Andover High School, and former varsity soccer coach turned mom coach of daughters. So we welcome you, Caitlin, and congratulations to you as well. I also want you to meet Elliot Clayton, who is our new secretary for the school committee and my confidential executive secretary. Haha.
That's amazing.
Oh, the whole Zervis community is in mourning.
Oh, yeah, that's
Elliot,
sad.
yeah, sorry, I win.
I'm about to.
Actually, the district wins. And Elliot has actually extensive leadership both at Zervis, but in former executive assistant roles at Beaver Country Day School and Northeastern University. Congratulations, Elliot.
Thank you.
That's the most excited I've ever seen Ben, ever.
Elliot is a fantastic leader of the Zervis building who we see every day on the way in and out. He greets everyone with a smile, immense competence, and general good spirit. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for us getting to work with him. I will not be rewarded by my Zervis friends for that reaction to them losing their dear Mr. Clayton, and the kids especially are going to be bummed out. But I'm sure that we can find somebody who's at least half as strong as he is for the building.
That is by far the most excited I've ever seen him. So just
Yeah. It's like throwing me off my game, how excited you are. And last but not least, I want to introduce Jesse Krodick, who is our new Director of Mental Health and Wellbeing. Jesse is a longstanding mental health practitioner within the district, has overseen the elementary K-5 coordinator of SEL and the behavioral intervention group, but now will take on the consolidated K-12 mental health work that is being discussed tonight as part of the transition. Known Jesse a long time, wonderful human, and congratulations. Just because there are a lot of guests here and I would like them to go to bed if they want to. They certainly don't have to stay for the longer transition meeting, but I do want to say that many of the public speak comments resonate deeply for me. These are not cuts that anyone on this committee wanted to make, and they're extremely hard. But the people that we're going to discuss tonight are not merely checklist takers. They don't just take on jobs. They are our colleagues, and they are mourning the loss of their colleagues that are part of these reductions, and also are taking on more work. And I just feel like it's important for you to see faces and names of the people that we work with every day who are taking on additional roles. So there's a lot of us, so I don't know if we just want to stand up here and just be recognized, but I just want to start with our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Joanny Santa, who is with us, has put together a team. She is on the board for the Mass Partnership for Diversity and Education, an officer in this group and a connected hub and expert in this field, particularly around recruitment and diversification in hiring. She is the brainchild behind the Peroni Sizer Institute pipeline program, of which our newest Bowen principal is a graduate, and we have 2 other graduates this year. Sure. Come on up. I'm just going to keep, I know, you want to see the outfit. Her team, Jasnelli Bautista, the pipeline and retention specialist and recruitment, Jessica Chin, HR generalist. We have a PSI intern, Blaine Lopes, who has worked on us with affinity support, and over time, that we've been applying for congressional earmarks for Blaine to expand the work that he's been doing. We have Caitlin Lewis, who's the Director of Human Resources. All of these women will be taking on additional actions and responsibilities within the department. So thank you, and we appreciate you being here this evening. I do want to just acknowledge Amy Mistro, who was just online. She's the Director of Business Operations. She will be taking on several new roles within the transition plan. I do want to just recognize the Office of Family Engagement, who got a little guest star appearance already, but now they can come on up together. So led by Christina Maryland, who is the former DEI director for the Mass Trial Courts and a former Menino administration teammate with a specialty in including those with disabilities and emergency planning. Daenerys Santos and Lynn Vincent round out the team, family engagement specialist and our new truancy officer. We just left our State of the Schools this morning. That was this morning, feels like a day ago. One of our middle schools literally halved their attendance issues this year. The leadership of this team and the training has made a huge difference. Time and seats makes a difference. And these women are the brainchild behind the community closet, the pocket talks for every school building. This department is really taking on a lot of the community engagement activities and training that is aimed to create belonging and welcoming environments for families and children. And I thank you for the extra work that you've taken on. So, thank you. In the teaching and learning department, not with us tonight, is the director of professional learning, Matt Coleman, and Lauren Harrison, the assistant director of ELL, who are working with our current DEI director to scale her vision of culturally responsive instruction and with new and existing staff. The DEI director, in partnership with these two individuals, will train every single new teacher in their first 5 years of their employment here in Newton Public Schools. We thank them for the additional roles that they have taken on. I want to acknowledge, in terms of sustainability work, members of this school committee will be taking on additional roles, both in facilities and planning, and again, Amy Mistro in food service. Bob in custodial will be taking on a lot more training obligations. It's Bob Fleming. Liam Hurley, our CFO, will be taking on all of the payroll expectations. Dave Stickney will also take on additional sustainability activities. As one of the speakers said this evening, it's not the same as having a dedicated person, but we have individuals with experience in the field. It is not the same as having a dedicated director of sustainability, and we acknowledge that. But the work, we're trying to carry it through, and we're trying to do that in the best way that we can. I do want to say that the city sustainability team has sat with us and mapped out particular pieces and particular meetings that we will do collaboratively. The schools, as they do with DPW and fire, will be called to attend when items like food service and transportation or green captains are part of these meetings, that our folks will attend these citywide coordinated groups. That includes Sam Nyman, Jen Martin, Ann Berwick. This is not the same as a dedicated person for NPS, but it will ensure cohesion and alignment of vision with the city. Not with us tonight, but certainly with us in spirit. Jean Roundtree runs all of our safety team meetings. Oh, sorry, Jean, I can't see you back there. Sorry, you're hard to miss, but you're always in the back. Hi, Jean. So Jean is here, and he is our safety team person with our police, fire, and traffic, and experienced administrator. I know someone wrote to us and said, like, being an avid cyclist is not how you get on safe routes to school. That wasn't the prerequisite skill, but that's a nice passion play because he cares about it. And I wanted you to see the face that would be working there. In terms of student services, we've had a significant reduction of NISA staff within this building. And with the reduction of their staff, Anita Chen and Skyla Eastman Diffusco all absorbed duties that a third NISA staff person would be taking on. And I do want to just acknowledge our soon-to-be new NISA president, Kristen Correa, if you want to come on up. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can just stand up. She's giving me that look like, please no. Kristen has been our transportation assistant and ran the office solely this past year when a colleague had to be out. She will now take on a cross-training support role, as well as support to various offices during their busiest times. Her versatility and her leadership have been treasured, and we believe that as of tomorrow, she will be the NISA president for this year, which is a nice Wednesday, which will be a nice synergy. So thank you, Kristen, for all your help during this transition. Thank you. I do just also want to give a shout out to the entire custodial team. We have a team of custodians here, but we have had to deploy them to buildings to absorb the reductions. And just as, so we all know, starting July 1, the Ed Center will close at 6 p.m. each day unless there is a school committee meeting here. So for all you late workers here at the Ed Center, you're going to get out at 6 so that we can reduce a shift there within the building. I just wanted you to see the folks that are taking on most of the roles. I hope that I did not forget anybody who is sitting here. It's like my worst nightmare. Did I get everybody back there?
Jean's still there.
Jean's still there. Okay. And I guess I also just want to say that with the change in payroll and planning, the role for long-range planning and building projects has typically fallen on the CFO and the superintendent. And we don't have an active building project that is new before us, but we still have 3 buildings that are in process. And so we are going to have to work with the city to ensure that our staff have a smooth transition. And so those will become the things that we must attend to. So I just want you to know who the faces are with that. You can stand up, Liam. They see you a lot, but you know who he is. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, and to that end, I guess I just want to finish by saying we were able to obtain some congressional monies that we've been told are coming through so far. Not all of our earmarks have. One of those allows us to restore Jim Ellis, the supervisor of ABA services, back to full time for this year. And another set of monies through international student tuitions allows Jan Shen Lucky to continue to finish his curriculum work through the end of this year. But these are temporary. You'll hear me talking about these back when we're with each other in the budget season. I'm not going to read the memo to you. I think I've done a good overview there, so I'm happy to answer any questions. And staff, you are welcome to stay, but you won't offend anyone if you go home and go to bed because some of you are up early. All right, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Questions? Victor.
Sorry, Dr. Nolan, just a quick question. The Dr. Ellis's one, it was congressional funding and state funding, or just
Sorry, I didn't-
congressional for Dr. Ellis's position? It was congressional and state, or just congressional?
It was a state earmark.
Tamika?
So I do think it was very effective having the staff members who would absorb the cuts come and be visible and just have us meet them and understand a little bit about their background. I think it's a given that we have a lot of skill and capacity built within the existing staff. However, that is a great thing. And a however and an and or a though, however you want to put it, I do think there is something, and you've acknowledged it yourself, that there's a loss of that dedicated person who is charged with carrying forward various tasks. And so in the absence of that dedicated person, that center point of accountability, I think it really rests on the school committee to become that accountable backstop where we are looking and reviewing these changes and making sure that, yes, as the memo outlines, these tasks are being completed. Yes, these job centers and duties are being carried forward in a way that feels true to the objective that's outlined here and the goals of this district. And so I think that's one avenue for us to make sure that we're not falling flat or slipping in terms of our commitments. But I do think it was great to see and to have this comprehensive plan, which is exactly what we asked you to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben?
Thank you, Dr. Nolan. Tamika, I echo your comments, and I turn to you as our resident expert on being here for a long time and on our relationship with our superintendent. I guess my question is, how do we do what you just said, which sounds great, without overstepping our bounds and telling Dr. Nolan how to do her work?
Yes. I think that's a wonderful question. We do have bounds. However, we have oversight, and that oversight is the backstop. We have one employee. We don't have the range of employees that Dr. Nolan has presented in front of us, but we have one. And in managing and supervising that one employee, we can make sure that those other things are in fact being done. That's how I would do it. And the other way is to ensure, I saw a lot of references to our data department and our data office. I want to see that data. I want it to be presented here. I want us to hear what are the incidents, what are the Title IX claims, what are being settled, and I want us to have a regular cadence of, and when I say regular cadence, we can make it manageable. If it's once a year, that's fine. It's regular. It's something that we can look to and expect to be presented and have as a discussion point for this committee to review.
So spoiler alert, you're getting that dashboard. It's prototyping right now at our July retreat. You will see it.
Great. Thank you, Mika. Those are helpful examples. That's great.
Anyone else? No? All right, thank you. Our next item is some board appointments, and I think we have Alex. It's a great opportunity to introduce Alex, the new Newton Commissioner of Buildings. I think he's online. I don't know, Steve, if you can promote him. There he is.
Good evening.
Alex. So do you mind just letting us know you've recommended some folks for the school committee appointment seats on a couple different boards?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that and answer any questions. I'll take 2 minutes just to introduce myself. I've been with the Public Buildings Department since 2011. I was the deputy commissioner since 2015. I've worked on every school project going back to the renovations and additions of the day school. So pretty much every school project in the last 15 years I have been involved in and have worked closely with both the Design Review Committee and the Designer Selection Committee. Both committees are under the city ordinances, and they are responsible for selecting our designers and our design professionals to do the work. And the Design Review Committee is responsible for reviewing the designs as they come forward, making sure that the projects meet the program. Eventually, they are the body that makes a recommendation to the city council when it comes time to vote for site plan approval. The 4 members of the Design Review Committee, these are all actually reappointments. These are all folks that have been appointed in the past by the school committee. Ellen Light, who is an architect, has been on this committee since 2006. Tom Gloria, who's the other co-chair with her, is sustainability is his area of expertise, life cycle cost analysis. He's been on the committee since 2014. Steve Siegel, I'm surprised there isn't a plaque somewhere in there. Former member of the school committee, structural engineer, very involved in the community and on our projects. And Ambrose Donovan, who is retired a few years ago now, but former principal of McPhail, a geotechnical engineering firm. These are all individuals with great professional, technical expertise and experience, but they are Newton residents. They have worked on all of the school projects. They have been instrumental in volunteering their time. I dare say thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. So I'm hoping that the committee will reappoint them. They're excited to continue in their role. As you all know, we're going to be studying feasibility studies starting up for some school projects, probably at the end of the summer, and we need to have our committees in place. And so I think we're really fortunate in Newton and the school and the city and public buildings to have these folks on the Design Review Committee. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Does anyone have questions on the 4 re-ups for the Design Review Committee? No. Okay. Let's move on to the designer selection.
So Designer Selection Committee, in that committee, the school committee has 3 representatives. We are in search of 2 others. Emily Prenner, again, well-known former school committee member, school committee rep to the DRC, and has been on every school building committee, I think, since at least for the last 5 school projects, probably starting with the Newton Early Childhood Center. So Emily, of course, brings that hands-on experience of actually been in the working groups and on the committee with the DRC and the school building committee to understand the designers, their roles. She's, of course, incredibly knowledgeable in school projects and school issues. And she was happy to commit herself to be on the designer selection committee. And so we were happy to put forth her name as well as a recommendation for this committee. And then we'll have to continue to look for 2 other folks over the summer and get those appointments hopefully done first thing in the fall.
Question, Jason?
This isn't a question, it's just a comment. It's a really impressive group all across the board. And then especially to see Steve and Emily volunteering their time gives us maybe some hope as new school committee members that will still want to be engaged after it all. But it's really fantastic. So thank you, and thanks in advance, hopefully to that group.
Go ahead, Tamika.
Just wanted to say very quickly about regarding Emily Prenner and why she's such a shoo-in for this appointment. Alex spoke about it, alluded to it a little bit when he talked about her skill and dedication. I can say with absolute clarity and certainty, skill and dedication for school building projects is what she exudes in every breath, step, or word that she speaks. And so, we are well served here, and she would be a really wonderful, wonderful representative. And certainly the others as well. I could just speak to Emily's because having worked with her so closely.
Thank you. So my understanding, Alex, is that it would be very helpful if we were to vote this tonight.
It would keep the process going. As I said, we still need to find a few other slots, but we want to start organizing over the summer and get ready so we can hit the ground running as soon as we hit the fall semester. I know everybody's ready to get out for summer, but we're planning ahead for the fall. So it would be extremely helpful if we could get those folks reappointed. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Tamika.
I actually do have a question for you, Alex. How are you going about soliciting or finding the folks the other 2 candidates for the fall?
We typically will reach out through the mayor's office, but through school committee, if you know of anybody, if you have anybody in mind, they need to be a resident. They cannot be in public service they have to be a resident. But that would be fantastic. Recommendations are always great. And we're working on that search. So you all can just reach out to me, write me, and let me know if you know of individuals who are interested, and we can get them to put in a resume and application into the system through the mayor's office, and we can have a discussion with them and hopefully find some more great people.
I'll just briefly add to that anyone who's interested can apply online on the city website. I urge all of us, if you know anyone who might be appropriate, to encourage them to apply. We typically in our office will share resumes both with the city council and the school committee. There are multiple places where we both have appointing authority. And we're always happy to be the portal for that. But again, really important. If you know anyone at all who's interested, get them to apply. We'll try to publicize that in our newsletter as well. That's been helpful. Thank you.
Victor?
Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate you for doing this. That's quite loud. I just don't know the rules. Is it permissible for students to be involved in this at all? Or is that
It's permissible, I think, for anyone, but really for these committees in particular, they've got to have some technical expertise. And usually we're looking for people with some significant technical expertise. Fortunately, in this city, we have a lot of really talented folks. But I would never say no, but it would, I just don't think they're
Understood.
likely to have the professional skill set yet that we would want.
Well framed, thank you. I would encourage alums then who have that skill set to consider. Yeah.
Is there a not job description, but is a posted target background or backgrounds or guidelines that would be helpful for us to circulate?
Yeah, there should be, I'll have to go back and look specifically what's on the website. We're working on that. We're doing just one of our initiatives in my office is to really examine all of our boards and commissions. And one of the things I'm very eager to do is to broaden the net, so to speak. In a good way, we want to encourage a variety of folks, not just, it's great to have reappointments, don't get me wrong, but we want to encourage as many people as possible from all different demographics. The caveat being that for these technical ones, they've got to have certain skill sets. I don't think I'd be much use on a design review committee, for example.
If I could just follow, if there are even just high-level bullets that would be helpful in guiding for people who may want to get involved but aren't sure if they're qualified or meet the bill, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I just add, if anyone's interested, reach out to our office. We'll direct them. We can have conversations. If they're not suited for one of these committees, for example, there's lots of other committees and boards that don't require a particular technical expertise, but really rather just the interest in serving.
Thanks.
If there aren't objections, I would make a motion to approve these tonight. Usually we would take a second meeting, but I feel like the reappointments and the really super known quantity of Ms. Prenner probably makes it a little more straightforward. So I move that we approve the 4 nominations for the DRC and the 1 nomination for the DSC.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second. Second that.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes, Ward 8,
Yes.
Mayor Laredo.
I'm going to recuse myself just because I make appointments to these same boards and probably don't want to double dip.
Sounds good. Passes 8-0-1 recusal. Okay. All right, next up is
Thank you.
policies. I'm sorry. Let me say
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Alex. I'm sorry. Bye. Policies will start with timeout, seclusion, and physical restraint, which we previewed last time, but we are joined by Dr. Ellis this time, who knows all the things and can probably answer questions if you have them.
So if you recall, when I was before you a couple weeks ago, I shared with you a memo, revised draft new policy with some revisions, as well as revisions to our existing protocol. Jim did the lion's share of this. I helped shepherd it with some legal consults along the way, but he really is the expert and did most of the work, and he's best poised to answer questions. As far as I know, no questions have come our way since the last meeting. So I assume there might be some tonight, but I don't think there was any that came to us that we were provided with ahead of time.
I do just want to say that Friday, we had a meeting with the commissioner, or Thursday, and they affirmed that there are still no answers at the state level for the questions that we've all submitted. So we're all having a nail biter here because August is the implementation date. And, Jim is the person leading that for us. So we are doing our level best based on what we know. And we have a lot of questions still.
But I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any information people have. I mean, as a district, we've been working a lot, really focusing on the prevention piece of trying to set up our schools so that we can avoid situations where we have to think about restraint, seclusion, those kinds of things. As a district, I think we do a really good job of that. We've gotten a couple grants from the Department of Education over the past couple of years to help us with that. We've got one going on right now. We're going to be doing a pretty large training on June 29th. It's really going to focus on the new regulations as well as, again, strategies for preventing needing to use those kinds of measures. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Tamika? And Jonathan?
So from my perspective, at least, no new questions doesn't necessarily mean that the prior question was settled. And the prior question that I had emailed you folks about and we touched on a little bit was about this gray area, the unanswered by DESE and unanswered within our policy area that's contemplates a student who doesn't have any of the parameters for seclusion, who is having an emergency, a true emergency scenario that requires something. And so the question is, if DESE isn't telling us what that something can be, we still have students that are having, right now, real time, potentially having these situations. And so what are you instructing staff? How are they to respond? And the answer, I'm assuming, isn't, well, DESE hasn't said, so can't tell you that.
No, it's not, DESE hasn't said, but one thing that DESE did say is that, well, they said sort of off the record, is that we sort of have a one-time pass, so that if there's a situation with a student and we haven't done all that documentation and don't have that, and we need to use those emergency procedures, then I don't, and I think the reality is we have to use the procedures we have to use in any situation to keep students and staff safe, whatever that might mean in the moment, even if we don't meet all of those requirements that have, DESE has put forth in terms of the documentation that was required.
And so, I've spoken about the policy, big umbrella protocol being the specific way of triaging and addressing in the moment with your staff situations that arise. The problem that I'm having here is that the policy is vague on this because we don't know. DESE hasn't given us that guidance, and the protocol itself is also vague. And so I guess if you could just walk us through a student is having some type of breakdown. What is the staff's job in that instance? Like, what are they instructed to do?
Well, we have staff throughout all the buildings trained in safety care. That's the crisis prevention response system, that behavioral crisis and response system that district use. So the main thing would be following those protocols, which is the biggest one is trying to de-escalate the situation. That's going to mean, using the specific procedures that are taught through that to try to de-escalate the situation. That might mean making the environment safer. That might mean removing other students. That might mean, in some cases, doing whatever we can to appease that individual in that situation so that it doesn't escalate to a situation where we need to use more intrusive procedures. That might also mean calling for, crisis intervention, calling 911 if we need to in some of those situations. It might mean using physical restraint in situations where we would not want to, but we may need to do in that situation.
I appreciate you giving.
I wish I had more answers,
No.
and I think it's something we are working on. One of the things we're really going to focus on in this training on the 29th, and I've been one of the things I do is I review all of the restraint and timeout reports, that incidences that happen, and I review those reports, make sure that we're following protocols, make sure, and check in with staff when I feel like that's not happening. And so one of the things I've been doing in preparation for this training is kind of look at a lot of those situations and see what are the kinds of situations that our staff are dealing with, so we can problem solve those and come up with some better ideas of how to respond to those things when these policies go into place.
And I thank you for being proactive and doing that work. Thank you.
The other question that was outstanding from last time was more about the environment in a school in general. When a restraint occurs or a shelter in place or what have you, how do you process, how are our staff coached to process that with the larger classroom, and how is the student reintegrated into the classroom?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big sort of question. I think a lot of it is going to be, on an individual basis, really assessing what needs to happen there. In some situations with some students, we have to, particularly for students who are in crisis, we need to think about how do we debrief with them. I think that debriefing piece is really key, and it's something we focus on a lot in that sort of what to do after the fact, whether that's debriefing with that student, but also making sure we're debriefing with the other individuals who've been a part of that, checking in with them, using the resources we have within the buildings, and then also really making sure that we're doing that with our staff, I think is especially important. It's especially important just in terms of, checking on their well-being, but also to look at what happened in that situation so that we can think about how do we avoid that situation in the future? What kinds of measures can we put in place? And that's one of the things, again, as I was saying, when I'm looking at the reports that we get, anytime I have any red flags, I reach out to those teams. I often might go in and help them go through some role play scenarios of what if this were to happen again, really think about that. So it's a lot of those kinds of responses that I think we need to do. But I think, back to your question, really thinking about that larger building kinds of things, it's tricky because we need to respect students' confidentiality when we're talking about these kinds of things, but we also need to make sure that that all students understand and feel safe after they've experienced these kinds of things.
Jonathan?
Thank you for being here. I apologize, I'm gonna ask a question that I did not submit ahead of time, but it's a little bit higher level, so hopefully this will be okay. My sense is that much of the policy, as you guys have updated it and as we're voting on it, is driven by standards and or DESE rules about how we manage students in the classroom and how we provide for that. Are there places here where from your point of view, like we're making decisions one way or the other as a school system, and so there's like a judgment in here and you say, hey, as a school system, we have chosen to take this conservative or this more liberal sort of point of view on how we think about this policy, and that's a judgment that we've taken? Or is it all kind of somewhat mechanical and comes down from the way the statute works, and so there's not a lot to know? Yes, please.
So we have like the policy, right?
Yep.
Regulations.
Yep.
No, we put protocol. So, which one are you guys talking about? I think the protocol is for like what actually happened. Were you talking about the policy or the protocol or both? Or I just
I'll be honest, I don't know.
I would say that
I'm not sharp
the
enough.
policy is just the facts, ma'am, and the protocol is the art of it. And so, are we taking weird liberties with unusual techniques? No, we are not.
Okay.
On this one, you want to be pretty by the book, because this data, as Jim can tell you, this is a large part of his job. DESE collects this data and quizzes you on it, right? Can you talk a little bit about the oversight there?
Report, well, right now, restraints are what we are required to report right now. So anytime there's a restraint with any student, we have to, provide a lot of specific information, which we also use that information to help us sort of understand and, again, avoid and prevent those situations in the future. But we have to submit that to DESE. Specifically, it's not very often that we get questioned on what we submit to them, because I think we do a pretty good job of our documentation. But I think to your question, I think we, if anything, and I can speak especially for myself, tend to be much more conservative, and particularly when it comes to documentation. Certainly in terms of any of the implementation we're doing, we use safety care. We follow that very closely. We train lots of staff. We have lots of staff who are trained in using the physical management components of that. But as part of one of the DESE grants we got a couple of years ago, we did a large training on just those prevention and de-escalation components. So really focusing on that. But the documentation piece is where I tend to be a little bit more conservative, because right now DESE is not really giving us any guidance on documenting the use of timeout per se, alluding that, we should kind of manage that or track that. But I think it, and it's something I've been sort of trying to work with and working with other colleagues on, is making sure that we're thoroughly documenting that. Even though DESE is not saying you need to document it this way right now, I want to make sure that we are thoroughly documenting that, and also making sure that staff understand the significance of using those strategies when they do. So I guess if anything, we're being a little bit more conservative, particularly with the documentation.
That's helpful. And maybe just one follow-on question. If it's in here and I missed it, I apologize. But like, what are like the parental notification requirements in all of this? Like how frequently, with what time window are we required to notify? And yes,
Just,
please.
First, I'll remind everyone that the restraint part of the law and process has not changed in terms of notification. So we can answer that. I just wanted to remind everybody about that because this is really around exclusionary timeouts or seclusion.
Yep.
I'll leave it to Jim to answer those questions, but there are specific notifications informed
Yep.
for both.
Yep.
And so
Yeah,
Great.
And we will be using, for seclusion now, we will be using the same format for how we document those things and follow the same guidelines. So it's essentially, in terms of reporting to parents, it's trying to contact parents that day within 24 hours
Yep.
verbally to let them know what's going on.
Yep.
And then within 3 school days, providing them a written report of the situation. And that's for restraints or seclusion.
Restraint or seclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
is there a timeline by which it's to DESE?
Not so much. The only timeline really, I mean, we get that to them as soon as possible. The only specific, by the end of the year, but is if there's an injury. If there's an injury that occurs as part of a restraint or
To the student or to staff.
to the student or staff, we have to report that within 3 school days to the Department of Education.
And that 24-hour and 3-day standard is a DESE standard. It's a Newton Public Schools standard. It's a DESE standard that we are rigorous in abiding by. Great, thank you.
Other questions? No? Is there a motion to approve the changes to policy? Give me the letters again. JKAA.
So moved.
So moved, Victor. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Melvin. Right, let's take a vote. Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8?
Yes.
Mayor Laredo?
Yes.
All right, passes 9-0. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry it's
Thank
late.
you all.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
You too.
Different circumstances.
Great job, Jim. Thank you.
All right, next policy is homework.
I will concede the floor to Victor and Anna on this one and Jason.
Yep. I think, yes, but Victor and Jason, I think, have helped architect with significant feedback, some changes. One of you want to take a stab at explaining? Okay.
With thanks to Victor and Alicia for inviting me, I have done some kibitzing on the policy committee and was really thought we had a really great discussion last time in terms of this balance between, specificity. We shouldn't be getting too specific on the policy level. We should be up here elevated and trying to give principals, the district, et cetera, support for changes that I think are felt by the community, that are expressed by teachers, along the lines of some of the themes, and I'll go through them in more detail, but making sure we have the same thing across schools in the same grade, the same a natural path vertically as I'm learning across grades as you progress. And so those are really the main changes that I think you'll hopefully be noticing, is that we've tried to put those high level concepts at the policy. The challenge in this particular case is that we do want there to be enough connective tissue for it to be implementable. And so we've tried to, even in most cases, we've received feedback from a number of quarters. What's in this policy and then the handbooks, actually, the handbooks content was generated by Dr. Nolan's team, especially middle school and elementary principals. And so in some cases, and then we've got another wave of feedback on that by teachers and NTA leadership. And so that'll be the nature of the changes you see down there, which is specifically to make sure that it's not too rigid, but that we do maintain some quantitative guidance. And I'll walk through this in just a bit more detail, but I'm doing the broad brushstroke. And then been responsive on a sort of micro level to especially some of the feedback from the NTA and teachers on some of the detailed bullets that may or may not belong to elementary school and some other points of feedback. So if it's helpful, I could highlight those changes very briefly.
I think that's a good idea. Thanks.
Okay. So if you're at the policy level, both the start and the finish of the policy is exactly as it's been written in past, but there are sort of 3 sections that have been inserted in the middle. The first says Newton Public Schools has the following expectations for homework. And what we tried to do is capture in those 4 bullet points that follow what we thought were the key themes, again, at a high level of what the committee was saying last time. So number 1, that there is regularity to assignment of homework, and that we don't want to be prescriptive in the earlier elementary grades, because that is, from a research perspective, et cetera, more controversial. And so that's where the first bullet comes, regular assignment starting in grade 4 through 12. The second is that horizontal alignment, meaning what I'm experiencing in 4th grade or 8th grade at school X versus school Y should be relatively in the ballpark. And so reasonably aligned. And we're using that language intentionally, as reasonably aligned is not, 7 minutes, I did the math and 7 minutes more over there. That's not fair. We're trying to shape it and give enough flexibility. But do want to see that regularity across grade levels. The third one is that vertical alignment I mentioned. So that is, and this is one of the main complaints I think we see in data from teachers, from parents, anecdotes, as well as is you don't want a roller coaster as you move your way through the Newton Public Schools. You really want to make sure that it's a thoughtful progression. Victor's added a lot of the key educational terms to what we should be speaking to here, but this is a gradual and thoughtful increase so that as students progress in their capabilities, that the homework is meeting them where they are. And then finally, there's a theme of, and Dr. Nolan's spoken about this quite a bit as well, but we want it to be up here, that there should be connection to classroom instruction that's research-based, but we should not be too prescriptive on. So those are, I think, what we heard, hopefully correctly, from the committee last time as the key themes. And then what we are asking is that there be that sort of high-level policy be translated into the district level guidance, which we're going to look at tonight and we've made comments to, and then finally building level guidance. And that's what the next 2 sections provide for. We're going to have quantitative guidance, at least for transitional grades 5 and 8, and then principals will be responsible in concert with the superintendent for a building specific guideline, because not every community is ready. And we, to Tamika's point last time, we don't want to put out a policy that is not enforceable and is not form fit from the get-go. And so this is in discussion with Dr. Nolan and in brainstorming a way for us to provide that bridge without too much specificity. And so the district guidance is what we're reviewing today. The building practice guidance is something that we will be looking at. We're in discussion with Dr. Nolan, something that we will be looking at annually is what's being stipulated by the policy. And so that will give us the ability to see what's working, to iterate, to gather data, to get feedback. And so that's the general concept at the policy level. I could hit the highlights as well in the district handbooks very briefly.
Yes, yes.
In general, the #1 connective tissue from the policy, which is on the first page, to the more detailed handbooks that, again, were the source of the plurality of this was from the principal groups that looked at this, is if you go down to the section, and it happens twice, once for elementary and once for middle, the homework time allotment guidelines. We've actually taken what the principals drafted and brought it up 1 level. And really the concept here is we want to have a guiding benchmark for those buildings leaders to be able to shape a policy that's appropriate for their staff and team and particular building dynamics, but does allow for that horizontal alignment, and we did ruminate on this and get feedback on this. And I think there's pretty good alignment, not only from the sort of district leadership perspective, but also in those discussions we had with teachers and NTA leaders. With caveats, I think there's some support for having a numerical guideline, and we just don't want it to be punitive or too strict. It needs flexibility. And so that's what we've tailored some of the wording to make sure is in there. In terms of the specific numbers, because I saw that was a question, there really are two ranges we're putting out there. And that was a key point of feedback from the educators, is we want to see a range. Things change. You have a test, prescribed the next day, or it's early in the year and you're building. You don't want it to be, 45 minutes, plus or minus 2 minutes. You really want a wider range. And so the good news is both between the literature, which suggests a sort of rule of thumb of 10 minutes per grade level per night, the original numbers that the homework, that the principals put in for homework, we didn't have to go outside of those numbers. They were harmonious. And so specifically for 5th grade, and this would be sort of a point of completion at the elementary school level, you want to be in 5th grade, ending your elementary school experience with comfort being in that 45 to 60-minute range. That was exactly what the principals had put in from the beginning, and it aligns with that roughly 10 minutes per grade level per night. And then it's got the caveats that we've heard are important, like it's described as a guideline, not a rigid number. There is appropriate language to illustrate that there are reasons why it won't be every night, et cetera, that I won't go into all the detail on. And similarly then for the 8th grade, there was alignment. The number that was in from the principals was 75. The range that we put there encompasses that 70 to 85. And again, that's right in line with the 10 minutes per grade level per night at 8th grade, 80 minutes. So I think we have, in my opinion, what is a good starting point that stays high level, navigates that balance, enables us to put something in motion, see how it's going, doesn't put us in that challenging position that I think Tamika aptly warned about, of being too prescriptive and not being able to hit the mark. And then what do we do? My opinion is that it threads the needle on those things. And then I won't go through all of it, but there were a number of other really important feedback that I want to thank teachers and NTA leadership for giving us, where we, just to name a few highlights, there were some elementary school bullets in the handbooks that were not really specific to elementary school. We pulled those out. Another highlight for me was there was some language in there about differentiating homework. We don't want this to be unduly burdensome to teachers, so we really focused that on where it's sort of required accommodations, like on IEP or other reasons. That's under the teacher's will sections for both elementary and middle. And then finally, another one that's a highlight for me is we know that in not every case there is a suitable place for study at home. That's important for us to diagnose. And so we've added, I think the spirit of this language is to do our best to understand when that's the case, so that the educator and hopefully the district can support both the student and the family in those circumstances. So I'm sorry for the mouthful, but hopefully that's a helpful part.
Questions? Linda.
Thank you, Jason. I love the approach that you took up front with the NPS expectations. One of the things that I voiced at our last meeting and via email over the weekend is I do feel we need to have some, we covered elementary and middle school, but we didn't cover high school. And this issue is still very prevalent at the high school level for the same class, for the same level. So I would love to see that incorporated in this.
I think there's room to do that in the high school handbooks, which we will approve in the fall, right? So the protocol section belongs in the handbooks for elementary and middle. And so that is something we could look at. The policy at a high level does expect that work to go grades 4 through 12, but the protocols are something we will review.
So I just want to point everyone to our question sheet from today. So Jean Roundtree put in that the curriculum committee has made decisions on how the leveling is working up at the high school. And we are in the process of implementing new math curricula and new literacy curricula. So at this moment, we are super uneven in terms of, we've got AP classes, we've got levels that exist now, levels that are aspirational, new curriculum. We are just not in a place where I can say to you, this is what we're going to recommend. But I think that teachers, particularly at the high school, raising this now, there's some agita about how we've done the homework and holiday calendar. So like when they can assign it. So I want us to think carefully about what we let them assign and how much. It's getting very small, like the window and the opportunity that teachers have to individualize this. And courses are different, right? Some elective courses are different than like AP chemistry would be. And I don't want to micromanage that situation.
Are you good?
Yeah, I don't think we want to micromanage it either. I think what I'm getting at is the spirit of collaboration to ensure that two students taking the same course, either at the same high school or different high schools, are having roughly the same homework experience in terms of, magnitude, etc.
Victor?
I thank you, Linda, as well, for raising that. I do think, as we said, there will be opportunities in the future. This is exactly as Jason said, I think a first pass to try to navigate multiple areas of good concern that are out there. And I leave at least the collaboration meetings that we've had optimistic that I think the general intent is well understood. Again, we'll have to see how it actually plays out in practice, but not to be too much redundant, but I do want to emphasize a few points. I think in no particular order, we're trying to be very clear that it is, as you said, sort of research oriented, backed, I should say. It is community informed, both in terms of parents, educators, administrators, and beyond. And that it is not meant to be an accountability exercise, right? That's, I think, an important point. But at the same time, we need to make sure that our educator colleagues are understanding that this is a clear statement that a lot of folks from the community are saying, is that we do value homework. We want to make sure there is homework in grades 4 to 12, but we don't want to be so prescriptive to say it's got to be this exact format at this school at this time, right? That's taking way too much professional discretion away from the people who have to deal with it on a daily basis. So we're trying to make sure that we navigate that thread well. I think in the case of why we started, at least from my opinion, with elementary and middle school, was that it was perhaps the area where it was the most concern was expressed. And then exactly as Dr. Nolan's saying, there's more opportunity for us to figure out the longer term plan with high school. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, that's there. But we do want to emphasize that the expectation is that there is, regularly signed grades 4 to 12. And again, it's very high level because that's what the policy should be, but we are trying to, you appropriately, I was going to use the word scaffold, but I'm getting appropriately, educated that that's not necessarily the easiest of words to
There's the right word.
Yeah, but we want to ladder up appropriately, right? The way that we are having our students grow. So I think the point is, I think, to say to the community that it was heard. This is an attempt to get to there. Hopefully, folks, again. So if anybody's like unclear, no homework is not acceptable, right? That's the point. But neither is being so fanatic saying, hey, what I don't want to have happen, although I always invite conversations, is a parent coming in the fall and saying, hey, teacher XYZ didn't assign this particular homework, because there are so many different variables, right? Somebody might steamroll through, even if we say you should have an hour worth of homework in 6th grade, right? So using the 10-minute rule, right? There's always that possibility that some student's going to be able to do it in 40 minutes. Some students going to take 70 minutes, right? So we're looking at general guidelines here for them to say, hey, a typical student, we would expect to do this in this particular point in time. And just don't be so, different across the school settings. I know you guys all kind of get it, but I think that's the main point that I want to highlight is I think we're moving in a direction. I'm optimistic that this is something that we generally all kind of agree on, or in spirit. And so if we can move forward in that, it's a start, but we will have to reevaluate it in the fall, regardless of whether it's going well or not. I think we just need to have that checkpoint.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Victor. You know, one question I have is how will we know if this is working? Like, how can we evaluate? When do we do that?
Yep.
Maybe it's a year from now at the end of next school year, but it's tricky because sometimes you have a few loud voices and it can skew. How should we do that?
I will speak for myself, which is, sorry, but just, yeah. So I would say, number one, I'm pretty sure we will hear if there are issues of concern. I also think that from my perspective, this is part of the operational management of the superintendent and her team to also make sure that the coordination and the implementation of this is working in the way that's possible, right? So in other words, the role of, I see our community is to provide that feedback to us if necessary to, or to the superintendent's office. But in terms of the holding of teachers to the process, I see that as the role of central administration to fundamentally manage. And then for us, as in our sort of oversight function, I would say we would probably want to docket a review of this, if the chair agrees, sometime in the mid to, the fall time, let's just say fall time in general.
I just think it's a great question, Linda. I think we should be following this in some way, shape, or form. And I personally felt the first stab at that, which was Dr. Nolan connecting with Victor and collaborating on some questions that went out to parents to make sure. I think that was very valuable for this process to actually get data from a wide range of parents via the family survey. And then, yes, it would be great to know questions like, how did it go for students? Because this will be a change. Was it too much? Does there need to be a glide path? That is part of the reason why we have building specific implementations, because that may need to be a glide path in different buildings based on where they are now. And we know there's differences. How is it working with teachers? Are we seeing the things that we hope to see at grades 6 and 9, that there's a little bit less spread and sort of experience and ability on these things? So I think it's a really great question, and I don't have a prescription, but it would be great to continue the data gathering we've already started.
The policy does answer part of that by saying that building leaders will submit their plans to the committee annually. So I think at least as we're kind of trying to grow this over the next year or two, we should be docketing and doing a review of the policy. What else? Jonathan?
Having missed the first conversation last week, which I felt badly about, I thought the rewrite read really well. I thought it, like all of my, I felt many of the same things that Jason, you alluded to, and I felt like reading the rewritten document, it captured both the spirit as well as the, it captured the spirit of what we were trying to do, of what I think the community wants to hear, and what it feels like is appropriate for the schools, without being overly prescriptive. And so I think it's a good outcome. Thank you.
Ben?
I agree with Jonathan. I appreciate the work. I think this kicks the ball forward from where we were before, and resolves some of the things that were uncomfortable about the policy that felt a little bit more prescriptive. I have a procedural question. What we're being asked to vote on here appears to be a one-page policy, and then also amendments to the elementary and middle school handbooks?
No, you'll approve the handbooks in the fall like you always do.
Okay, so
This is a preview of what we'll put in it.
okay, so right now we're just approving the first page as a policy by itself, without the handbook edits that come behind it.
That's right.
Okay.
And if I go rogue over the summer and rewrite them, you'll just slap me back to reality.
We'll pull them out.
Pulling it.
Not concerned about that. We just price it in.
Superintendent would go rogue on us.
I was going to say I price it in that she will, but okay, one way or the other. It either will or won't happen, and we'll either deal with it or we won't. But I guess the question is, does that give enough guidance to the principals if we're doing page 1 without pages 2 through 5, or are we giving them a half-baked solution here?
No, I mean, they'll get these pages right now for inclusion in their handbooks, which get written over the summer and approved by you in the fall.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
We're signaling, and this is not, I just want to make very clear, the words, 90-something% of the words that are in the handbooks were generated by a group of principals. The changes that we've made were informed especially in those areas by teachers, NTA leaders, discussion with Dr. Nolan. So my sense is we're heading in the right direction on that.
And just a note that those guidelines were based on the Lexington Public Schools guidance, which cites the Newton Public Schools former generation of guidance as the inspiration for the Lexington Public Schools. So there seems to be a full circle moment there.
In acknowledgement of its being 9:50, do we need a motion?
We do.
It's 8:50, but
8:50.
okay.
Well, you know what? There it is. At any rate, I would like to move to approve the policy as currently written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Ben?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go ward by ward. Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes, with gratitude for the work of melding our thoughts.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Back to the future, yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8.
With Ben's enthusiasm, yes.
Mayor Laredo.
Yes.
Okay. Passes 9-0. Let's do another policy, shall we? This one, yes, I think had an edit, Jill, one edit that was suggested.
I think device.
So I just want to say there was one member who had some suggestions. If that member wants to say the suggestions or additions, she can or not.
I'm happy to. I think I erroneously sent them to just Dr. Nolan by accident. It's a simple change. I'm looking for the document right now, but thank you. All I wanted was a period after the word classroom, rather than this, especially when the elementary schools. I feel like it almost gave people an out that, okay, it's just like, no devices during these times. So that was my simple recommendation.
Take out especially.
Yeah.
I mean, this policy is for elementary.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Anyone have strong feelings about that?
I do.
Other than Linda, Jason?
Well, I just want to ask, because I'm not sure I knew the full background for the genesis for this. Was the question before the superintendent to contemplate elementary in particular? And is that where we're most comfortable starting? I just would like to make sure I understand that background.
Well, we issue devices that are taken home and used quite rigorously in middle and high school. So there isn't recess, is snack, but not play times anywhere else. So that was the specific request, was during those times.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on it? So then I will move that we make the adjustment that Linda has suggested and remove the clause, especially in the elementary schools or whatever it says.
Seconded.
And okay, great. And pass it. All right. Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8.
Yes.
Mayor Laredo.
Yes.
Right, passes 9-0. Right.
I think similar to the homework policy, this is something that it would be terrific, maybe at the same time, if we are surveying families, to ask about this, because this is a topic we hear a lot from parents who feel their kids are on devices too long, too much, particularly at the elementary school level. And I'm curious if those feelings change at all with the implementation of this policy or not. And so I think it would be a great question to get more data on after this is implemented.
All right. Okay. Moving on to the superintendent's evaluation. One tiny change was that I added the note I mentioned last time about giving the superintendent some credit for the productive bargaining sessions that we've had. There's a lot of credit to go around for that. it is 100% a collective effort, but I thought it warranted inclusion in that document. So that is in there. I don't know if there's further discussion or questions.
Happy to move to approve it.
Move to approve the superintendent's evaluation. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
7 is a yes. Ward 8?
Yes.
Mayor Laredo?
Yes.
All right, passes 9-0. Feeling productive, guys. Okay. Yep, fiscal and ops.
I saved this moment for fiscal and ops. I just wanted to specifically recognize the Business Finance Operations Department, who are also taking on additional roles with the reduction of the Director of Payroll. So payroll is one of those functions, like, not out in front and, you know, seen in a glorified way, but you can't run a system without it. Alyssa Beringer, Owino Otahambo, Janelle Sutherland, Robin Boucher, Amy Mistro, and particularly Nicole Skepa and Lauren Albert, along with Liam, take on the full-time job of the departing Director of Payroll. We have bargained this with our NISA staff, and we will be revisiting it in the new year. This is the one that we are most worried about in terms of timely payment to our staff. There's a lot of working parts, and I just want to just say it's going to be a complicated year on the business side in this area. But here to speak on other terms about fiscal and ops, Liam Hurley.
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. So here to report basically for the end of May, fiscal and operations report to you folks. And to kind of rip the Band-Aid off, I'm going to just start with kind of opening that we are not hitting the mark that I wanted and that we had as a school committee and as from my perspective. We'll get into that. So as you may know, we had a plan goal of carrying forward $2.5 million. We're in a positive position at approximately $1 million, 1.1 as a carry forward balance, but that's approximately 1.5 million short of our goal. So I'm going to just start there, lay it out. We can get into the details. Kind of want to go through some of the variances that we have here. There was a number of questions as well, maybe about how we build the report as well. And again, thanks to a lot of the team members that we've got on that. So as I mentioned before, in this memo, we had started in February. We had reported actually a deficit of about $620,000. We came up with a fiscal, what we call basically an essential only purchasing freeze and an operations freeze. It does still mean we buy things, and it does still mean that we actually hire positions. So it doesn't, it slows things down. People need to verify and just check that these things are absolutely needed. Getting kind of into the kind of high level piece of the salaries and benefits are actually relatively right on target. There are a number of variances when you look at the line items, particularly I would say our aides. We were reporting that this year our aides were over budget more than $800,000. So paraprofessionals, our aides has been an area where we went over budget mainly due to what's called, so we have category 1 aides, which are basically our teaching assistants, and our category 2, which are mostly BTs. Many of those BTs are our one-to-one positions. That's the higher paid position. That's where we had a number of move-ins that came in. I'm thankful in this report does reflect the funding that the city did get to us of the full day K kindergarten aides, the $500,000 that was added mid-year. That was very thankful. We added those positions. So that was the funding was received and accepted to us. And we obviously certainly had those positions. I think they were almost fully hired by mid-January, at the latest, late January for those positions. There's a number of offsetting pieces. I don't need to go through the main ones, but just to kind of a couple of highlights on terms of salaries. I mentioned the aides being a pretty big overage, teacher salaries being positive, in deficit of about $367,000. We had a couple of middle school positions and a couple of elementary teacher positions that we had. We had a number of some big savings in our substitute teachers. And I'll talk a little bit about when I talk about contracted services. So our substitute teachers and our ISS, substitute teachers were $527,000 savings, and our ISS about $135,000 savings. So those were staff that we were not hiring we're basically using Precision HR, our substitute vendor, to have that. And I'll also talk about how our student services is also using a number of substitute services as well. Benefits are projected to basically a negative balance of 102,000, so very, very close, spot on to our team. Some of the big areas, and this is a theme that I think we talked a lot about in the FY27 budget. I think we were seeing that again. It's not a surprise. Utilities were significantly over budget for us this year. We were seeing significant demand rate charges. Certainly, what's going on geopolitically has not helped us, but these demand rate charges have hurt us. The city has locked in a number of supply rates, but even those, and we've worked closely, and I really appreciate the work of Sam Nyman. They've worked, and before him, a gentleman by the name of Bill Ferguson, have really tried to lock in our rates, but we can't lock in on the demand rate charges that we get, and we had some increases of upwards of 30% on that. I am hoping for FY27, we did increase from significantly in our budget, I think, as you recall, but this was a significant area, more than $500,000 in utilities over budget. Another big area was maintenance, specifically charter maintenance. This is work that David Stickney and their team do in our buildings. And again, we get a lot of support from the city for that work. The work is never ending, and there's no end of money that we could use at our buildings. So we had significant work at Burr at an elevator. At one point, we had a staff from an outside company actually sitting in the elevator for days on end just because the elevator was not working. We've had certainly roof issues that we continue to work on. I'm thankful to the city. We're going to be actually replacing portions of roof or roofs. Burr is one of them. We're going to be replacing Newton South, a portion of that roof. We've had some significant, but before we replace some of these items, we're spending significant amounts of money kind of in our maintenance budget to basically repair those items. Which charter maintenance, from my perspective, has been an area of habitually that we have actually underfunded, or this is actually, unfortunately, an area that I would say is common for us to be over budgeted, and I'm not proud of it, but we typically had a hard time bringing that budget up to where it needs to be. Contracted services is another big one. If you do see the word consultants, we use consultants. Sometimes it's really contracted services. We don't have high-end consultants running around the district. It's really vendors. So if you see the word consultants, that really is for us a vendor of ours that we may be using. One of the big, really kind of the main drivers for consulting, for contracted services was both our Precision, kind of for our general education substitute teachers. We've been talking about this now for quite some time. That's covering for staff absences. And then student services. So the Precision is for contracted services for us, and as well in contracted services for student services. Student services spent significant amounts of money with a company called Sunbelt, almost $500,000 to actually cover for BT coverage, for leave of absences and vacancies, and another $200,000 additionally for BT coverage through Precision as well. So Precision all in was approximately $2 million. So about $1.8 million for general education, and that's another $200,000 for student services. We had many other needs in contracted services for student services as well. Almost $250,000 in terms of medical transportation, interpretation for all our IP languages that are out there. So just they were running in overages this year. It has been really, really a challenge for us in that area. Tuition, we ended up with approximately 137 out-of-district students total. We currently have 128 students right now, and I talk a little bit here about kind of the fluidity of these placements. We have students that will be aging out. We have students that will actually come back into the districts. You have students that move out of the district. So we give a little bit of a description, but we're actually just reporting about 107,000 negative balance in tuition. Part of that is that we got about $1 million more in circuit breaker than we were assuming. So that was a helpful add that the state put in with circuit breaker reimbursement. Transportation is another area that we saw some big savings. Again, this is some additional funding that we got. One was the MECO special education reimbursement that came in that supports some of our students coming from Boston on vans. And then I was in touch as well with Jay Sullivan, who's a DESE. He's one of the commissioners. And I was actually hopeful that the transportation reimbursement for the circuit breaker was going to go from approximately, I think it was 62 to 75%. He let me know that that was part of the millionaire's tax funding that was supposed to be going out to many districts. He said that that actually died in conference committee. I was surprised to hear that. He said that DESI itself had some additional funding and the reimbursement will go up from it, but it's going to go up from about 62 to about 68%. And that's, I believe I've got that at about $160,000. If we were to get to 75%, which I'm still hoping may happen, I'm not confident at this point, that would be a total reimbursement of just under $300,000. So unfortunately, that one is not coming in. Last year, on June 25th or June 28th, we got a reimbursement of about $500,000 for that circuit breaker. So that really helped us top off our account on that one. Other areas, and I think there's some questions on this, some real lower than budget supplies and equipment. I think you see that particularly with the kind of the purchasing freeze. And I think that there's a question of like, are we starving the schools? Are they, any requests that I got, if I had principals following up with me saying, I need this, Liam, I had science, kind of some of the science teachers saying, look, we need this for curriculum. We were buying it. I understood what they needed. Pencils were in the classroom. Things were in the classroom. I do know we get a significant amount of donations from families, from PTOs that actually support our schools as well. We asked all our schools to be as tight as they possibly can be. What's called our per pupil spending, which is really funding that the schools have. This is for our high schools. It's in the $220,000 to $240,000 range for the year. Our elementary schools are in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. Everybody left some money on the table from I would say elementary schools on average left about $5,000 on of unspent funding, and our high schools left about $40,000 to $50,000 of money. So in total, it's about $250,000 of savings from our principals on about a $1.2 million per pupil budget. So I appreciate them. It is something that they deferred, and they understood that we needed to make that happen. I think those are the big items. I spoke for a while, but again, I guess to just start with that, I'm disappointed. Right now, the projection is not to hit the goal of 2.5. There are still some things that can hit. I think the other piece that I would put to you folks that's actually rather complicated is that for the month of June alone, most of our months were in the range of spending about $25 to $27 million a month. The month of June is actually a spend of about $50 million. And the reason for that is what's called the teacher lump sum. So for myself, I've got one more payroll that will hit the NPS budget for fiscal year 26. The teachers have the June 26 payment, as well as 2 payments in July and 2 payments in August. Teachers have the election to actually have that all received on June 26 as a lump sum payment, so they technically would receive 5 payments, or they can spread it out. I would say, I think 60 or 70% actually spread it out. They receive the payments in July and August. But all that money, it's part of a workbook that we do. That money is technically FY26 money. Their first payroll that hits in September will be for FY27. So it's just a little bit of a timing difference. Just a timing difference, that's right. Their pay goes from September 1st to August 30th, essentially, while other staff are July 1st through June 30th. So with that, opening up to
questions. Jason.
Thanks for the update, Liam. And I know this is from the last fiscal NOPS update, been something you all have been managing as best you can. I think we all have spent time thinking about the carry forward and lamenting it, and it does put us in a tough situation. I think we're seeing it when we have the carry forward. We gain some comfort on promising that we finish ahead by a certain amount, and then when there's inflationary factors, we feel the pressure. And there's, so I know that there are a few things that could still break our way. One of the things I just wanted to follow up on for that is the circuit breaker percentage amount. And, we had discussed maybe 62 could become 75, and I heard you say probably not or not, and it's trending towards 68. What is in these numbers here? What's the assumption? Is 62 still in here, and so 68 would still be some upside, or how are we handling it right now?
Good question. So I believe the percentage previously was 62%. The word from Jay Sullivan was to go to 68%, which was approximately, and I think it was 162,000. We assumed the 68% is in there.
Okay,
So
so
did not assume the full 75%.
These numbers have the 68.
Yes.
Thank
yes,
you.
We have that increase. I think we talk about that in the transportation section there.
Thank you. You acknowledged the point that I raised around supplies, and I can imagine some of them, we can control and manage, and others, even if you say, but let me know, there can be places where we don't know. And so I applaud the very significant challenge that you must be going through to navigate, but I would encourage us to get the message out that, sorry for the example, but like Johnny should have a pencil to do his work in class. I don't know if you have comments on how you've navigated that, or
I mean, our principals are the most amazing advocates you can find. So, I mean, they are going to make sure that their principal, I mean, they will have, if there's something that they need, they're certainly going to let me know. And if there's something that's discretionary, I appreciate that they'll come to me, and there's times that I'll say no, and I'll certainly have a discussion with central staff or the superintendent about that. But they really will, they're not going to go without. If they think a student needs something, they really are going to, do their most to make sure that student gets that.
Thanks. And then just a quick comment, because in my view, that the carry forward is at the core of this. When we report out on the carry forward and where it is, I know why functionally we're putting it in that section around transportation reimbursement, but I suggest that it actually, both from the narrative and the tables, be split out, because it's a fungible resource. And I think for the naive reader coming to the fiscal and ops report, it can get really confusing. And it also, you kind of have to do some backing it out math to figure out, stuff like what percentage of the transportation was actually paid, or of our transportation was actually supported by the state. Because we don't want to give this system of carry forward that we're in any credit for funding it. So that was just a suggestion, but in general, thank you again for working through this. I mean, I know you're still pulling levers as much as we can, and I look forward to future updates.
Linda?
I just had a quick clarification. I apologize. I did not email this question. On the substitute teachers, did we just basically do a swap, meaning we had a savings of 527K, but then we had an overage of 580K? Is it that we're just now using Precision as our go-to substitute teacher?
I would say, yeah, I think it's a valid way to look at it. I think the additional piece to it, though, is I think the coverage from student services for the BTs. So that was another $250,000, and then they've even got another company called Sunbelt that they're using. So there is still additional coverage that we're doing with student services, but from the kind of the regular teacher line, yeah, I would say that's a swap, and it's something that I know we cued in on, and I think it's something we could think about as trying to close this gap. We cued in on the budget for FY27. We actually lowered the budget, I think about $150,000. But I think it's something that I think that if we continue this path, I think we should find some of that savings. I mean, I think what I found here is that we've typically had buckets where we've had overages, we've had offsetting savings in other areas. So this has been an area that's really coming to our rescue right now.
I just want to say, reminder that the Human Resources Assistant Superintendent came to you to share the developments of the Joint Labor Management Council with the NTA, and there's a proposal for how to approach this set of cost savings and to make those adjustments. So I know Mayor Laredo, you weren't here for that, so if you want to hear the details at our next meetup, we'll get it to you.
I guess that was my follow-on question that maybe goes to you, Superintendent, is I would imagine Precision is a more costly option, but perhaps a more, reliable. They get a seat, they get a body in the seat easier. And is so is there a plan for a
So we
completely different?
shared a plan with you to reverse those costs. It's actually can't be the plan because they are not unit staff and we need to fill our unit staff so the plan that Joanne brought to you all institutes that expectation and we're trying to get our reliance off of this service.
Okay. Thank you.
Victor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Liam, thank you as always. I also did not submit this because it just struck my attention. If we could turn to page 10, the My School Books one, I'm just curious about a few of these items. The three that are most jumping out to me are the three biggest, the ones: elementary student activities, elementary music, high school athletics, that are differences of negative. Now, some of it, your footnotes, I always appreciate as a former finance guy. This does not have to be tonight. What I'd be curious about, it might be moot soon. What's going to be, if we looked at same time, through the mid of the month, my guesstimate was some of these are still going to fall, given the deltas that I see right now, are going to fall probably short of where 25 is. Is that a generally correct guesstimate, or?
So in particular, you're checking athletics.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at elementary student activities, the third one down, elementary music, the fifth one down, and high school athletics, the seventh one down. The ones with the three biggest difference deltas, put differently. Some of it is timing, this, as you pointed out well.
So we'll do typically in September or October, we'll do a final report. And so I can give, so we can give a tally on this. I think there will be, so our revenue is often trailing from these reports were put into Munis. This is from My School Buck. So I'd love to just report out on the final piece there.
Fair enough.
I will say the one that I am aware of, and it's particularly Newton South, their participation is down.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Their
Okay.
participation is down. The AD has let Amy Mistro let myself know, for whatever reason, their numbers are down. The number of students does not believe it's fee-based. It's just student populations, not as many students are signing up for some of the athletics as been in the past.
Got it. Okay. And it's not an issue of the cap, to the best of our knowledge.
He hasn't, and again, he's not said that. And again, our experience with I'd like to say we're very generous with financial assistance. I say that, but I really do mean that. We try not to have anybody, if you come across anybody,
right.
I have really, I've asked families if the fee, if financial assistance, please apply.
Right.
And we're very generous. We don't want to deny a student.
To be clear, I haven't heard any issues with that, so it's good. I just imply that there's a decline in participation, which I was curious about. I haven't heard anything, no, to be clear. And then the last one, which is more maybe a fiscal 27 one, in case you guys know, I haven't heard anything about Chapter 70 modifications. I think they were supposed to, okay, you still haven't heard anything either. Thanks. That's fine.
And the latest was, I think, 160 bucks. I think that was up from maybe it was $60 or $75 per student. So they've moved to this kind of per pupil number, but I don't know whether
It hasn't been approved.
I don't think it's approved, but okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Jonathan, do you have a question? It's our last. Ben?
So, what do we do now?
Yeah, thank you.
Good question.
I can start with that, Dr. Nolan. I mean, from my perspective, so we're starting FY27 on a whole, candidly. That would be how I would surmise this. I would say, and again, I'd like to caucus, obviously, with the superintendent. We've talked, obviously, a little bit, but I think that we probably are going to be in the same essential purchasing freeze to start the year. It's not easy. It's not, that's, and that erodes some of the enthusiasm of starting back up a year. Principals, the hiring, pieces like that. I do think, particularly looking at our paraprofessionals is a critical piece for us. We have a third-party consultant that's looking at that. I think looking at paraprofessionals from a whole different lens, I think that's going to be critical. I think, as the superintendent mentioned, looking at precision and our substitutes is going to be really critical. We have adjusted, we've increased our utilities budget, about $500,000 even from this ending. One of my little concerns is just the opening of these buildings. We're opening Countryside, we're opening Horseman. It's going to be back for September, and then, Countryside and Franklin. I'm excited to have those. Is this going to create some type of overage in utilities? again, we've budgeted for an increase. We don't know what that's going to be. 150 Jackson was more than we expected when we finally actually got the bill. We were very late in getting the bill from 150 Jackson. It's a large building, fully electric. And by the way, it's fantastic. Principal is so happy there. So these are great things, but they have an impact on our budget. There's a few other areas that I think I would just say openly, I think would need us a little more time. I will identify and can identify things from savings out of the gate. So there's going to be some potentially McKinney-Vento money, and I think there's definitely going to be some of the substitute money. So I think in some ways, we've done this before where maybe we're going to carve out some money and maybe set aside some money and literally put it in potentially a budget reserve and protect that money in a way, and then look for some savings. We will certainly be looking at our attrition numbers. I think that's really a critical piece for us. So what's our staffing? What's our staffing turnover? That's typically done in October, November. So there's a lot of pieces. I mean, it's a large budget, but if we start, I mean, we made a pretty large dent in 4 months. We've got the full year run there. Knowing what the circuit breaker is going to be, we won't find out till typically end of September, October from the state, what our assumption is, what that's going to be. So there's a number of things there that I think we got to look at in terms of what's the current budget and what can we do kind of from.
There's also a couple of ideas that we'll need your guidance on. So around busing and reducing our buses, we can do it. Do we want to? That'll be something that you're going to have to grapple with. And also, do we want to do something like halt some summer projects right now, maintenance projects that we were slated to do, that has been a historical practice here, apparently.
So I think what I heard, Liam, is that you can wring a little more juice out of the lemon, right? But I'm thinking sounds like the juice you usually squeeze out when somebody comes asking for a carry forward.
Mhm.
So if we get asked for another carry forward, which we have to assume we will, because we always do, it's not clear to me that we're going to have anything left to squeeze. So,
Well, we were just saying we've never felt worse to bring in a budget $1 million over.
Right.
Like yeah.
Okay.
The busing idea, just to understand that a little bit, is that when the school committee voted a couple of years ago to change the private school transportation routes, so we were transporting, you may have followed it. I think it's created, and Regina Moody, our transportation director, has talked a little bit about it, has created some basically, I think, ability for us to look at the routes. We transferred about 3 students. We've had the same number of buses that we have now. Looking at our elementary runs, and particularly middle school runs, is there a way for us to condense the number of buses? So each bus next year is going to be about $130,000 per bus. So we're one of the higher daily rates per year. I think it turns out to be about $740 per day. So if you do the rate times $180, that's just the rate that we paid our 5th year of the contract. So that is an area that whether or not would there be a wait list for students, things like that. And that's not very popular, but.
So thank you. That all makes sense. My view of this, though, is before we go cutting more stuff, and we're still in pain from the last set of cuts, I think we need to get to an answer on the carry forward. Mr. Mayor, I think you said that you want to take a hard look at that for next year. I think we all kind of thought that can's down the road, but I think we may want to get to that hard look sooner than later so that we can decide if we need to do
built
this.
this year's budget based on an assumption of a carry forward. That was the number that was given to us 2 months ago. Okay, that number is no longer accurate. Okay, we'll deal with that reality. We're not going to be fixing the carry forward in the next 3 months. We may do it for the following year afterward.
That's what I mean.
About that, but don't look for us to make up for the shortfall.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it would be helpful if whatever is going to be done for the FY28 budget, right? How much money do we have to carry forward from 27 into 28, or can we not have to carry anything forward at all?
We're going to certainly start having that conversation this summer. It makes it more difficult when the carry forward is $1 million, and that's it. So we're dealing with not only 28, but we're right now dealing with the reality of 27, and we built a budget based on certain assumptions. We had those assumptions 2 months ago. So,
It was
I
very
didn't think
clear to
that-
us that we couldn't go to 0 or 1 million, right? So we were at 3.35, we pulled it to 2.5. I don't know where that other million would come from.
That was the challenge. I think the goal that I've had without,
Mhm.
any other support was
Look,
to
I think
slow
it's
it
gonna
down.
take all of us some collective work this summer to review a whole bunch of things the superintendent and you are gonna put together. We'll come up with some ideas. We'll work on it collectively. That's certainly my intent. And we're gonna look at it from a going forward basis. What are we gonna do to solve what the problem is now, rather than look backwards? And the only reason I'd look backwards at all is so that we're in this, if we're next year, we're not faced with similar issues, and just take lessons learned and you move forward from that.
Yeah, just to be clear, I would feel more comfortable with the lemon squeezing plan if we had comfort that the next carry forward is not going to be another 2.5 million.
You're asking me to predict something that we're not prepared to do. It's a whole bunch of things. We've already talked about what we can expect for an increase each of the following 2 years, which is roughly 5%. Eliminating the carry forward requires additional funds.
Yep.
So, I'm not prepared to commit without careful consultation with
Understood.
the CFO about what we're going to do to hopefully reduce and ultimately eliminate the carry, at least what I'll say is the reliance on the carry forward in the budget, which I would agree with you is not a healthy practice. And unfortunately was started a number of years ago by our predecessors.
That's right. So all I'm saying is that conversation that you have said you'd like to have with.
We are going to have that conversation.
And I think sooner than later, because I think it's going to impact the way that we look at this decision.
I have scheduled meetings with leadership of the school committee, finance committee, the superintendent, and Mr. Hurley. I'm making myself available all summer long, and I think we have meetings on the books already.
We have 3.
So we're going to get right to it.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Jason, then Victor, then Jonathan.
Just very briefly, because you mentioned a few areas where we're working to control, but I want to highlight them because they're areas that you and the superintendent have talked about them be structurally under budget, and that is specifically the contract services and the maintenance. And so I think it's great that we're thinking about how to manage those. I'm not sure that it's great that we may not do things over the summer, so I don't have that's not me voting for that, but I think we should think about that. I want to actually look at it with a glass half full perspective for a moment, because especially in contract services, which is 1.4 million of the negative, we actually went and topped that up significantly to get to a corrected run rate budget. So to the extent like that right now is dragging us down by 1.4 million, that's a big number. And so if we've come close to tuning that up, especially if we continue to manage that more closely, that's going to start to look much better on the run rate in next year. And so I just, yes, we should think about ways to be fiscally prudent and get back on course and not hopefully be too far behind, but I just wouldn't want to overdo it if we think some of our tough budgeting decisions that we've gotten back to good budget practices are actually going to give us some uplift, and we'll start seeing that. I would just want to look around the corner on that.
Very fair. Yeah, I agree with you.
Victor?
I'll try to refrain from making my lemon squeezing comment go into planting orchards with overrides, but there's some options I just want to throw out there. They're not going to be big enough to make big differences, but just more of an FYI for folks. There's been inquiry from, I think, some of my ward representatives as well as others. As you may know, the cell phone service around Newton South area is not very great. I don't think historically I've seen much more than low 6-digit figures, but there's an open question about whether or not there's a win-win that could eventually be done, where if we were to lease space on school property, that would both be able to solve some of the cell phone areas as well. This will be for longer term conversation, but I'm just trying to generate ideas. Like, can we perhaps provide access to space for these carriers that they usually pay some sort of leasing or rental fee to us, and also hopefully get some more service in the area that's particularly helpful. Don't want to interfere with the device bans, it's a different story. But I'm just thinking like those kind of ideas over time, if we can start to kind of brainstorm those things, maybe we, as we were saying before, we can continue to advertised in the back of tickets for our new state champion tennis teams. That might be another possible way to, highlight and build on what we've got going here. So again, these are not they're not going to solve $1.5 million of gap right now, but if you hear about those things, I would just say encourage neighbors to come up, encourage neighbors to think about those ideas as well too, because we'll need support to do those kind of things.
Rent buses to the Scottish soccer fans.
There you go. Jonathan?
Maybe the other thing, and I don't know, Jason, if this is related to what you were describing, but maybe it feels a little bit different. I think I've been as vocal as anybody about the desire to eliminate the carry forward concept from the way that we think about budgeting, and I appreciate the conversation here this evening about that. But for what it's worth, right? Like if we can't figure out how to have a better understanding of some of these line items, we can eliminate the carry forward. And for the record, we're still going to be exactly where we are right now on the other end of that, right? You're fixing a watermark issue, but you're not actually fixing the underlying issue, which is that over the course of a couple of months, we ended up several $1 million out of bed between kind of where we thought we were going to be and where we've turned out to be. And so, several of the things in here that keep biting us do seem to be structural in the way that the budget has come together and in the way that the school system has come together. Somehow we end up, $1 million over on BTs. We end up $1 million over on substitutes. Look, the entire world is struggling with energy costs at the moment. I'm not sure what to say about that. It kind of is what it is. But a lot of these things are just kind of like recurring issues that we don't, as a city or as a school system, have a real way to figure out how we get control of, and that scares me at the moment. And so I'll be honest with you, like I don't have any answers here right now, and I'm not advocating for anything in particular, but we're only going to be able to shovel coal in the engine here so fast, right? At some point we got to figure out how to regulate the beast.
I mean, I want to reassure you that we've put in a position control plan for the BT paraprofessional issue.
Yeah.
It just hasn't existed.
Yeah.
And related to the substitute proposal we brought you most recently, that is a complete sea change in how those will be executed.
Which we think will give us better visibility. Oh, I remember this conversation
Yes.
now. We expect this to give us better control, not just better cost.
Yeah. And we have agreement from our teacher partners on this pathway moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we under budgeted contracted services last year by $1 million. That was a known thing that we did as part of a budget negotiation. And this year we did not do that. This year we budgeted it correctly.
I understand, but with all due respect, like we knew that we were under budgeted months ago, and we cut a budget based on a $2.5 million carry forward that we're now short on, in part because we overspent on that, and that was like 3 weeks ago. So
on paraprofessionals. Mm-hmm.
Tamika?
Thanks, Alicia. I just wanted to hit a little bit on the comment that Jason made about overcorrecting. I don't know that there is a level of overcorrection that we could feasibly do that would actually read as overcorrecting. I think we should be doing some of those belt tightening exercises and finding rooms to build in cushion and capacity within our budget, which, to Jonathan's point, is always increasing due to external pressures and internal pressures, quite frankly. We have a very large staff and set cost drivers that increase rather than decrease year over year. So to the extent that we can do a little bit of tightening of the belt, whatever. Yes. Tightening of the belt, we should, and really think, creatively about those solutions and do that work over the summer. And yes, with the finance committee and the mayor and the leadership teams negotiating and having really thorough conversations about some of our known financial constraints. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
I would just add, Kate Carpenter-Binier, I'm not sure if she's here. She was going to be coming back, but there is a report from she is here. So if there's any questions for her, she's reporting this is a pretty similar kind of year-ending balance from last year. She's been working incredibly hard to make this a successful program in Newton. She's looking for every opportunity she can. She'll pick your brains if you got a program you want to run. So she's working on it. The balance, I think, from my perspective, I think from her perspective as well, has not grown substantially. So, we're right around $105,000. Over time, we do want that to grow. But if there's some, obviously Katie's here, but that has been an area that I think we need to, continue to monitor. A few years ago, we looked at that very close. We were worried that we were going to actually have to subsidize that account at some point, but she has been able to basically, keep her head above water. But it is something that just I want the community to be aware of.
Great, thank you. I guess you stay put and Stephanie comes on up.
So I asked Stephanie to be brief, and I think folks know this will be Stephanie's last report, and just thanking obviously her for her time here and her work, and she's going right to the end, and really appreciate everything she's doing. So I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie here for a quick facilities.
So good evening. It's late, so I'll be quick. Oh, yeah, I don't know if we read the, yeah, but
That's a
fine.
supporting document, I think. Yeah, that's not your slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, take it back. Yep.
You have a facilities report that has high-level update on a number of projects, facilities projects, as well as the 3 major capital projects that are in construction, Horace Mann winding down, Franklin and Countryside almost winding down to have their transition next year. I also included the school supplemental CIP, which was presented in April. And I don't know that it ever came here, so just you may have already received, just so you have it for record here. There weren't that many changes to it other than changes for projects finishing and Underwood and Ward. Long-range planning projects that are just being initiated, I think have already been referred to. Newton South High School feasibility study, as well as feasibility study for Ward and Underwood, or depending on the vote, it may go forward as Ward. Other updates include looking at investigating air conditioning for some older schools, as well as the MSBA school survey, which I had talked about previously. They've now finished their report. It's posted on their website. We also have the MSBA doing a pilot project on Cabot for post-occupancy. We have a report expected on that at the end of June. They may find some interesting tweaks that can happen. MSBA provides no-cost engineering services to the district to really run tests on the building to see how it's operating. Sustainability, there's lots of projects going on for rooftop solar panel installations, as well as parking lot canopies. There's also an attachment that includes all of the projects that are listed. So a number of them have just come online. Mason Rice, Lincoln Elliott, Pierce, I think, is the third one. And then we're also working with Sam Nyman on the rest of the sustainability team on the city side on getting EV charging stations in all of the schools. All of the ones that are coming online, Horace Mann, Franklin, and Countryside, as well as a number of other schools, investigating the Ed Center, Newton South, Lincoln Elliott, and Newton North are coming online or being installed this summer. There's also a couple of updates on parks projects, so fields at Albemarle as well as at Burr, and then some transportation updates. Lots of RFPs going in, which are great for improving our routes to school. So try and keep it brief since you guys are here very, very late and almost past my bedtime.
Hard to be brief when there's so much. Thank you.
Did I miss anything that you wanted to touch on?
Okay, Jason, then Victor.
Thank you so much. And, partly due to some upcoming motions was going back and looking at all the work that's underpinned years of decision-making and prioritization. And it's a lot, and it's sometimes over my head, and it's really helpful. And this update was helpful. Thank you for flagging the MSBA bit. And I saw, I had to go down to like page 147 in there to find like the 2 pages on Newton. And I get that they've got a sort of gargantuan order to wrap their arms around the entire Commonwealth. It felt like a pretty high level assessment. And while directionally in line with the data that's much more detailed that you all have been compiling over the many years, and also the long range facilities plan that we have been looking at, it wasn't exactly in line with that. And I was just curious what your takeaway is from that. What data sources are they doing? What should we make of that as we think about interacting with the MSBA?
So it's interesting. They spent, and I walked through every building with the MSBA consultant. That was a consultant out of New York that went through every building in the district. Actually, not all of them, 20 out of the 23. We provided a lot of data for them about age of all of the systems, what types of systems, what % of the building is air conditioned, whether they have solar. It was an extensive data gathering exercise that we provided to them. And then we walked through the buildings with them. They asked additional questions. I think just my sense is that the way they crunch all the numbers and all of the data they're gathering, it shook out. I was a little surprised at the ratings as well. I might ask the question of the MSBA in initial conversations to get a better understanding of how that they settled on those assessments. All of our buildings are rated either a 1 or a 2. 3 and 4 are really the elevated buildings in need rating. I was particularly surprised that Ward and Underwood did not have 3 ratings. Again, it's against the context of the entire Commonwealth. So it may just be there are districts that have buildings that are in worse condition. So even though Ward and Underwood are our oldest buildings, they're working, Ward in particular has accessibility issues, but I'm guessing that that's what happened, that it sort of shook out against other districts that have higher needs. And I actually went through and was looking at the districts with buildings rated a 3 or a 4. So I don't know that that's a satisfying answer, but I do think it was just a lot of data for them to collect. They also have different people going through each building. So although they're trying to be objective, there's always a level of subjectivity.
It's really helpful color. Thank you.
Victor?
Always appreciate this. Is that me or I'm just trying to understand the grand scheme of things. So my understanding is it's not here, but I was just trying to look it up. The first 10 on the CIP are, I think, broader city issues like the dam, I think the sewer issues, right? So is that, I just noticed that we started at 11, and so I was just trying to see like what are the other things on the CIP. And I think they're just like big city items if I remember correctly, but
the pages you have are just
schools, right? Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It takes you to the full document if you want to see what's 1, 2, 3.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. And then the other, I guess, question is, what I worry a little bit about is these challenges of the weather. The AC unit questions that we get periodically. I mean, get students who are very nice and calling, I guess, about these issues. This is obviously bigger macro questions, but do we have any, I guess, thoughts right now about the roof situation, for example, at South or at Brown, the AC unit challenge that's going on right now that we hear from time to time? And these are sort of one-off things, but how does that factor in at all to the sort of longer-term planning and these kinds of options?
My response would be the most recent update to the CIP happened in April, but it happens again in the fall. Probably conversations I'm imagining are going to happen over the summer. And so that's the opportunity to start bringing those back in and talk about the prioritization with the city CIP committee or other alternatives for how to address them.
Okay, thank you.
If you have something else you'd add.
That's accurate, and we have been invited to those summer CIP meetings,
Yeah.
which school committee has not participated in the recent past. So will be at the table there, and we won't show up in the fall being like, the first time we've seen the CIP is right now.
And you're the one representing us, or who's a?
Will be the main
Oh, okay.
facilities lead. Yep, and Tamika and Linda can be as involved as they would like.
Great.
Usually typical to the conversations to get, there's a CIP committee, I'm assuming, continuing, moving forward.
Got it. Thank you.
Tamika and Jason?
So I just wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank you for the years and years of knowledge and expertise, of keeping us informed, keeping us updated, keeping us looking ahead. And that part is really unique, I think, to you and your range of MSBA knowledge and other, buildings, sustainability efforts, that you're scraping the landscape out there to make sure that we are, this district is kept, looking ahead and on the cutting edge of being able to be nimble and flexible and move in directions that would be beneficial to our students and our staff and our families. So I thank you for the work. It's been a remarkable pleasure working with you over the years.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure. Lots of great work that we've done over the past 6 years, and incredibly all the way through COVID. A lot of those projects, the 6 projects that we worked on were all initiated just before and into the beginning of COVID. So kind of amazing, and testament to the collaboration and the work that's done also in the public buildings and all the other departments as well.
Jason?
I want to first agree with Tamika's wonderful comment, and so this mundane comment to follow falls a little flat. But I just also wanted to, because it came up, acknowledge the mayor and COO Morris for thinking about how the process should run in a participative way, and I think it's going to be awesome to have Jonathan and our representatives as part of that project this summer. And there's an ongoing effort to kind of write down on a scratch sheet how we're going to do such things moving forward, which is really just an amazing step forward for us. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for everything. Thank you.
Take a
Round of applause for Stephanie. All right. Sorry. These next ones might be quick. It's up to us, really. It's always up to us. So we were going to look at 2 planned motions. One for the Ward and Underwood recommendation that COO Morris brought to us last meeting. And then sort of attendant to that is a long-range plan revote potential. So Jason had some planned motions if you'd like to tell us about them.
Thank you. And I'll propose that we do those in opposite order, because I think one is sort of setting the foundation and the other is acting, I think, on the very specific recommendations and data that we got last time. We are mostly a new committee, but that's mostly, I think we have some good experience on what's come before us. But really helpful segue from the presentation we just received. There's been a ton of data that's informed a long-range facilities plan over time, and yet we should have at least some exposure to that, looking at the fact bases. There was that presentation that was briefly brought up, so I'll just reference it. If you had a chance to peek, there's just an enormous amount of content that was generated to rank all of our non-new schools, both at an elementary level, hundreds of pages on that, and a secondary level. And I think all of that, among other inputs and reports like the ones we just received, flow into a sort of rating of the long-range facilities plan. I think it's an important foundation for us to, have seen that at an appropriate level of detail, and then reaffirm if we agree with the order that's current in the long-range facilities plan. So my proposed motion is that the school committee reaffirm the long-range facility plan as previously presented, including its identification of, in this order, Ward, Underwood, Brown, and Newton South as the next major school facility priorities, while recognizing that the ultimate sequencing of individual projects remains subject to funding availability and strategy, especially the MSBA process and city capital planning. If I may, just a few words on the whys behind that, or would you prefer me to open it up?
We'll take a second, but if you want to give your whys, then I'll take a second on the motion.
Okay.
Can I?
Thank you. Yep. I may be out of order.
You're not out of order. No.
Okay. The specific thinking from my perspective is, as we think about all of that data, et cetera, and the most recent updates we've received from Stephanie, from our superintendent, et cetera, from my perspective, I don't think we're hearing new information to suggest that we're out of order in those top four. And I think the top four are really important because I think those are the ones that, as we think about those capital considerations, et cetera, that's what we can start really acting on. And so I think my sense is that we've got a really strong set of inputs, priorities from the past school committee, that we've got alignment with the city on those. And so there's just an important statement for us to put forward, that those still are in our minds as this new committee, the correct order. One topic that I just want to raise in particular, because it's come up, is we've heard from the community about, Brown and some of the recent announcements there, and could Brown be, and we talked about this a lot last time, maybe the most MSBA eligible project. We really do want to make use of MSBA funds. And so being strategic around how we position that, I think, is important. The way the current order reflects Brown before South, and the fact that we're doing some evaluation and putting money for that for South, from my perspective, is not unnatural at all. We know that we're going to move forward with a project for MSBA. And there, as we've been talking with the mayor and his team, there's every reason to believe that perhaps, and we heard this from Josh last time, that just because we're planning South there, that doesn't really mean that it's going to happen as a building earlier. And so to me, finally, approving this plan doesn't really lock us into rigid sequence as much as it reflects our priorities, which we know are true priorities for Brown having significant need, actually may be helpful in the MSBA process. For all those reasons, I think we should move forward with this current plan.
Well, I'm convinced. I'll second it. Is there discussion, or shall we vote? We shall vote. Ward 1.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4. Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8.
Yes.
Mayor Laredo.
Yes.
Great. Motion passes 9-0. Second topic.
Hello again. The focus of last week's presentation was indeed on an analysis that we, as the school committee, were quite excited to move forward with the city accelerating an understanding of enrollment projections, site feasibilities, et cetera, the very content that the COO Morris presented to us last time. And so, I think, from my perspective, we have a pretty clear set of data to move forward on that. And so I'd like to move that the school committee support the city's recommendation to proceed with planning for separate replacement school buildings for the existing Ward and Underwood elementary schools, and not pursue consolidation to a single elementary school at this time.
Second.
Did you say second, Victor? Discussion? Ari.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you to Mayor Laredo and COO Morris for kind of getting this done and getting the answer that I think both the Ward community and the Underwood community were really looking forward as we were all in our campaign season this past fall. So thank you to you and your team for that one.
Thank Josh Morris. He does all the heavy lifting.
Beyonce.
Yes.
Try to bring you joy whenever I can.
All right, let's vote. Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8.
Yes.
Mayor Laredo.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 9-0.
Let's have a wine named that.
Welcome to the last part of the night.
Not quite.
We, oh, I have the old, we're not going to, there's a potential vote on an MOA, and we're not prepared to do that tonight. So that part is dismissed for now. It's not on my agenda. I apologize. So we're going to talk briefly. Jason and I wanted to give an overview of the office hours that we held this spring at just about every single building. I think we have one still on the docket. And then we have some returns that we're hoping to do in a couple places for various reasons. And I mean, it was really great to just be able to listen to educators tell us about like their daily life with decisions that we make and see how those things land. So Lisa, we're very grateful to Lisa for having organized them at every building. We ranged from some schools, we had like 1 or 2 people come and talk to us. And so we got nice specific discussions. And then at other places, we had more than 20 people, sometimes coming in and out over the course of an hour, hour and a half, sometimes all at once with similar things to say and different things to say, depending on grades and whatnot. So we have a huge thank you to the educators that took time out. One of the first things I'll talk about is what we heard from elementary teachers. And so you'll see why it's really important to thank them for their time because they just don't have very much of it in the elementary school day. But it was great to hear from them. We are going to talk today super high level. We thought at the retreat we might go a little bit deeper dive and offer a little bit more color from specific comments. And today we will only talk about things that really came out across multiple schools versus we got some really good specific feedback, and there are things that we followed up on, you know, as we were getting the feedback, but this is going to be a little high level just to get us out of here before it's too late. But it will be past 10, just so you know. So on the elementary themes, we talked about the school day a lot. Every building that we went to, it was like, is this a good time for you? And there was no good times to meet with elementary educators. They're just packed. I mean, even Wednesday, on the Wednesday half day, they've got their PLCs and their planning time and often departmental meetings. It was just really hard to find a good time. And I think they find that there's not enough planning time, especially with things like the EL curriculum being a pretty big lift in terms of planning. We heard issues with transition time, especially for the little kids, like the K through 2. We actually were at a bunch of elementary schools right after snow pant season. And so we heard a lot about like just the ins and outs of like, you don't have transition time, but it does not take 2 seconds to get out of your snow pants or get into your snow pants. So it's a real issue in a lot of elementaries, and it is something that they see as impacting sort of the social emotional stuff because the kids get a little dysregulated by that. They're feeling rushed, and then they're seeing some behavior outcomes based on that. What else from that day? Block scheduling was interesting. More classroom educators seemed to prefer it. Special subject teachers seemed to not prefer it. It also kind of depended on the subject. MTSS, there was some nice positive feedback about the fact that it's up and running in all the schools. And then what was interesting is it was very variable across elementaries. In some places, teachers felt like if they had a kid who had a low assessment but was sort of on the cusp, they could get that kid intervention by recommending it. In other elementary schools, they felt like they could not because it really was a hard and fast data cutoff. So that was interesting. That tended to be variable. And some schools reported missing the literacy aides who were part of kind of the switch out for the specialists because those literacy aides were running small group reading groups and stuff like that. We talked about curricular changes, so many curricular changes. When you're an elementary educator, you teach every subject. And so the fact that we're doing this like really fast pacing right now, or it feels like it's very extra fast to them because they have a change every single year. Now, hopefully once we've gone through these initial things that we haven't done in 2 decades in some subjects, it won't feel that way. But right now it is very much like a fire hose moment with curricular change for those folks. We talked about EL a lot. It's a lot, it's a lift, and it's challenging, they think, for younger grades to sit through those longer lessons. So we heard about that from a lot of places. And also this is the year where they're able to kind of customize. So when you first implement the new curriculum, you're supposed to do it with fidelity. We're now in the year where they're able to kind of pull things out and make tweaks. And that we got a little bit of variable feedback on that too. Some educators felt great about that and loved the flexibility, but more often we heard that they wanted a little bit more centralized guidance that absolutely took into account teacher voice and teacher experiences with the curriculum, but that wasn't each school doing its own thing. They worried that that would cause alignment issues and efficiency issues. So that was kind of an interesting one. Great comments about Amplify from a couple of the teachers that were piling in it. They thought that it was not a big lift, like EL, in terms of prep. Positive comments on science curriculum, in particular, the work that the director has done to align science curriculum with EL. We had a lot of kind of cool examples of those lessons coming together. And more targeted PD. They wanted more targeted PD that is based on how to implement the new curriculum, and a lot of suggestions of using the Thrive Day as like a way to workshop that. And then if I missed something on elementary, you hit it, and you want to talk about middle and high.
Perfect. Thank you. I also just want to echo how grateful we are for the time from the educators. Got really positive feedback for us providing a listening mechanism. So I think we want to definitely keep up the habit and learn from the process, including the scheduling difficulties and getting the timing right. I think we started to figure that out a little bit more, but it's a challenge. You know, there were just two that I just color commentary wanted to add on the topics that Alicia mentioned for elementary. I don't know why it resonates with me so much, but the comments around the transition times, and it is, you know, I think the most obvious examples are those like K and first grade examples, but it's really across the board. And one of the things that really hit me was, you know, especially for those younger grades, one teacher shared with us how an important part of the learning, whether it's tying your shoes or getting ready, is to let kids struggle, and that there's really learning from that. And then kids start to learn how to do it themselves, and instead they're finding themselves stepping into help because they're short of time, and so they're actually missing a life learning thing along the way. I mean, that for some reason that really resonated with me. So I'm really glad that we're working on this with the schedule on many fronts, but this was one that really resonated for me. And another one that I thought was, I just wanted to, you know, amplify is the science curriculum. We had a number of different comments, not only in terms of the thought that was put into integrate across different departments, but actually a really big one was, for me, we heard thematically that there was a real emphasis on how do I, from the center, make the teachers' lives easier, put it more at their fingertips, make decisions that that now 15 different schools with X different teachers don't have to make individually, that we can coordinate this and receive input and do it. So that was a real bright spot, I think, for me, and I just wanted to highlight that. Middle. So I just kind of going through the first, there was a lot of positive feedback for math interventionists. The need for MTSS was expressed almost everywhere we spoke. There were two concerns that floated to the top for me. One was around with allocations of math interventionists, and we as a committee have talked about how that will be sort of a adjust as we go target, but that was something that was on the educators' minds appropriately. And then they wanted to make sure we didn't lose track, which I know our superintendent won't let us, of the need also for literacy intervention at the middle school level. So that was expressed quite a bit. You know, I think with Math Pathways, there's a range of perspectives in terms of support and challenge with the meaningful change that represents, especially in the middle school this coming years. But I would say, like, most of the critical feedback was focused on the transitional stages, and we're hearing from the community on that. It's going to be challenging, and so I think not surprising to kind of hear that feedback, and it is good that we're spending a lot of time on how to smooth that. A bright spot for EL was actually, we heard a few anecdotes that there seems to be a difference in writing ability coming into the middle school, perhaps attributed to EL. That was volunteered. So it's good to hear the positive results from a big lift at the elementary level. I know we were seeing that in some of the data. And then there's a few here around class ratios. I mean, we obviously start, and we've been exposed to the budgeting process about how we look at enrollment trends and we make adjustments in coverage to try to keep the overall levels relatively flat, and learned quite a bit more about how then the next layer happens after that, which is, seventh grade at X school has a particularly focal number of behavioral needs. And so they'll actually down ratchet the ratios in that grade, which then puts pressure, but they stay within their FTEs. So it puts pressure to either go up to, in some cases, 24, 25 on average per class, and to and even higher than that in some specials. And to make that work, they're doing some, I literally had to be, how do you manage a 3-quarter team? And it's because educators have to be capable and licensed and instructing in multiple subjects. And so that puts, they're doing an awesome job of being creative with those things, but there is pressure from trying to manage behavioral needs, which I would say is a theme kind of across not just elementary and secondary. Is we continue to hear that the focal nature of the behavior issues is greater now than especially from multi-decade experienced educators saying something's different with these cohorts of kids, and we heard that pretty consistently. Last 2 comments on middle conferences, which we talked about early in the year. We hear pretty consistent feedback that those feel important, even though they're quick and they're rapid fire. The teachers really value that touch point, and I think that was pretty thematic for us.
Parent-teacher.
These are the parent-teacher conferences that are quite short, and I think the number one logistical challenge that they want to see is how do we, because right now the way it works with the schedules, et cetera, is it's like almost 2.5 or 3, something very long from start to finish. And so like, if you're on the front end of that, you're almost trying to give feedback too soon for that student. If you're on the back end, it's like too late. And so getting that somehow compressed, I know it's easy to say that, and probably having seen some of the schedules, it's hard to do, but that was a point of feedback. And then there were just a theme around some of the, either materials or other curricular day-to-day resources that they're feeling library needs. One that I know will catch some of our members' attention is in science, if there's not budget to do more tactile, hands-on like experiments, the substitute for that is more digital learning, because you can see some things digitally, but it's not quite the same. And so making sure, we're thinking about that, and there were anecdotes of out-of-pocket expenditures for those things. So we do want to continue to, as we talked about earlier today, stay on top of those. And then finally, high school. I'd say there's some similar themes. Obviously, the structure is quite different from elementary, but there were concerns around the number of new initiatives and support, a high level. This says mostly North because we didn't quite get the schedule exactly probably right at South, so it was more limited number of folks we talked to there. And we plan to go back. Similar thing around the curricular reviews and the fact that it hasn't been a while, so this first round is feeling like bigger lifts. Lot of discussion on the longer schedule time blocks. I don't want to have too heavily editorialized, but I think there are definitely some situations where the longer blocks are helpful. We heard quite a number of teachers saying it's a little too long for my particular subject. So that was a topic we heard about a lot. The athletic competitions, which was recently featured, those came up from teachers, no surprise. Win blocks, I think, is an area, without going into too much detail, where, how can we improve what that is? I think was a theme. SEL and mental health, phone device, these are themes that we've heard here. We're hearing it from the educators, no surprise. And then we actually heard on the last one around AI from a couple of educators today, but just broadly, that is a theme that comes up.
That's the overview. We can take a couple questions. I don't think we want to do like a deep dive right now, but go ahead.
No deep dive. I do want to thank you both for holding these sessions and having them throughout the year. I also want to acknowledge that the summary is very helpful to have for the members to hear some of the, what's top of mind for our staff. And also, I think it's important to open those up intentionally to other members of the school committee to cycle in, much in the same way that we have a rotating schedule of attending the PTO superintendent school committee meetings. There's something incredibly invaluable about hearing and engaging with staff in this way directly. I was able to do a few of those with the previous leadership team, and I will tell you, it's, you know, it's a really good opportunity to just hear from the staff in the way they're the ones on the front lines, if you will, living and experiencing many of the decisions that we get to make. And so, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? All right, folks. Last school committee meeting of the year. We're adjourned.
Can I make a motion to enter an executive session for?
Yeah. Still open.
Yeah.
Back. I just want to put out too that perhaps if you wanted to post for a meeting 2 days from now on Wednesday night, so we can get you the materials that you want to discuss and try to do some back. Okay. I mean, it's you choose, but I can't, you all look like zombies right now.
We'll get nothing useful.
We've been, frankly, we've been here almost 5 hours now.
Is Wednesday?
Well, it's the earliest we can do, so.
Wednesday or Thursday?
Don't do Thursday.
Yeah, can't do Thursday.
Can't do Thursday.
Wednesday?
Okay. Now, we make the rules so it can be at 4, at 5, at 6, at 7.
6 cents. Do you have a flight?
When are you?
When was your flight? Let's meet at the airport.
I can do Wednesday night if need be.
Okay.
I can do Thursday. Can do Thursday too.
We have a
Or
couple of those on
Thursday, or I
Thursday.
can,
If that's the case, can I just move to adjourn the meeting formally then? For this part?
I can make myself available Thursday.
Yes, we can.
We
don't need to move it. I just call it usually. Right?
Your executive session, you have to
Oh,
motion.
you want to motion that one? Okay, go ahead. Yes.
I just moved to adjourn the session. Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second. Are we shutting this off?
We're voting to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Yeah.
Yes. 2. Yes. Word 3.
Yes.
Word 4. Yes. Word 5.
Yes.
Word 6.
Yeah.
Word 7. Is it yes? Word 8.
Yes.
Loretta.
Yes.
All right, adjourned.
So 6 o'clock on, or 5 o'clock, or 4 o'clock?
Earlier.
But which day are we talking?
Wednesday. Wednesday? Later would be better? Okay. 6:30? 6:30?
Is this in person or remote?
Oh, okay. Do whatever. We could do hybrid.
Right, because you have to have a quorum.
In person. A quorum in either. We can do it.
We just do it virtual. Okay.
Okay, just make it virtual. Okay.
We'll do it virtual.
Virtual? Okay.
6:30?
Can't join till 8. Okay.
8's fine.
Is 8 too late, or do you want to start at 8?
That would be helpful for me. It's late.
It's earlier than
8 is fine. How long are we anticipating this to be?
Have to either vote it or not. but
Yeah,
I'm gonna-
probably an hour.
30 minutes maybe.
And then we need an open session after it. Vote publicly.
Yep.
Do it virtual.
The events are tomorrow. That's fine. We can both get it.